Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei became Arcadia's strongest. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Issei Hyoudou was the oldest child of the Hyoudou household, the firstborn of Goru and Miki Hyoudou, and the older brother of Dai and Aika Hyoudou. He was often considered the black sheep of the family, even before their involvement in the supernatural. However, due to Dai's deceit, his life became increasingly difficult. Things worsened when he entered the supernatural world, where he found himself treated without care or love. Despite this, he remained committed to helping others unconditionally, only for Dai to take everything he valued. Before his transformation, Issei was loving, caring, and compassionate. He was forgiving and merciful, even towards most enemies. He had a fondness for the factions, the Hyoudou household, the Gremory peerage, his family, and Vala's team. Conversely, he disliked the students of Kuo Academy, Nyx and the Hero faction, and Hades. His strongest hatred was reserved for the Chaos Brigade, Rhysavim Levon Lucifer, and Trihexa. After leaving the factions, a fateful encounter with Rhysavim changed everything for Issei. After defeating him, Rhysavim mocked Issei for helping those who did not care for him. Nevertheless, Issei held on to hope for a better future, especially after sealing Trihexa. However, two incidents shattered his faith. The first was Gabriel speaking ill of him behind his back and mocking him, leading him to lose faith in her. The second was Dai confessing his feelings to Gabriel, who fell for him completely. When Issei found himself alone in the hospital, with no one coming to see him while others celebrated Dai's achievements, he felt utterly abandoned. Ingvild Leviathan, having listened to Dai's lies, came to despise Issei, believing him to be a liar and a fraud. Eventually, fed up with the betrayal, he left in search of a better life, stumbling upon the kingdom of Arcadia, where he encountered Great Red, Ophis, Hades, and his new family. After his transformation, Issei retained his loving, caring, and compassionate nature, but this was now directed solely towards the Arc family. He became ruthless, sadistic, and merciless towards enemies, especially those who deserved it. He was hostile towards his past, particularly his former family and love interests. Despite his anger, he learned to control his temper for the sake of Arcadia, prioritizing his kingdom and new family over his own emotions. In his new life, Issei cherished his best friend Drake, Juniper Arc, the Arc sisters, John Arc, and the entire Arc family. He also held a fondness for Hades and his family, as well as all the kingdoms present in the continent of Arcadia. However, he developed a strong dislike for the four kingdoms of Vale, Mistral, Atlas, and Vacuo, as well as Albion, Crom, and Tiamat. His deepest hatred was reserved for the Hyoudou residents and family, particularly Dai, the factions, and those he deemed hypocritical or traitorous. Issei's journey in Arcadia was marked by his commitment to family and the values he held dear. He expressed his feelings towards Nicholas Arc, emphasizing the importance of family over power. He reflected on his past, acknowledging the loneliness he felt and the support he received from Juniper, who saw through the lies and offered him a new life. He admired John for having a loving family, something he had never experienced. He made it clear that he had no interest in ruling Arcadia, preferring to serve and protect it instead. Issei was determined to fight against the threats that loomed over his new home, prioritizing the safety of Arcadia above all else. His intelligence and capabilities were acknowledged by those around him, and he found himself surrounded by individuals who valued him for who he was, not for the lies of his past. Issei pledged his loyalty to Juniper, vowing to stand by her side for the rest of his life. He embraced his role as a protector and fighter, ready to defend his new family and home from any who sought to bring harm. Your family is something John cherishes the most, and he is willing to fight for it, even at the cost of his life. John was taken aback when he learned that Violet was expecting a child. He realized the gravity of the situation and understood that he needed to take responsibility and be a good father to the child Violet would bring into the world. He was reassured by his friends that he would make a good emperor, as the Arc Council, Juniper, and others believed in his capabilities. However, he was also aware of the challenges ahead. The Four Kingdoms might not react favorably to Arcadia, especially with the presence of several sleeper agents who could exploit their vulnerabilities. They needed to tread carefully to avoid war, though it was a reality they could not ignore. Willow Schnee reflected on the poor choices they all made in love. She acknowledged that, despite not being married to someone like Jacques or Nicholas, she had fallen for two individuals who had both looked down upon her due to lies spread by her brother. She suggested a sparring match to test her strength. She also expressed her happiness for Willow, who had found companionship with Crow, despite his drinking problem. John was determined to find Lai, no matter the obstacles. He expressed his desire to hear more about the adventures of Ren and her friends during their youth. He found humor in Saffron's protective nature towards John, realizing that he had grown and changed over time. John acknowledged that he and Violet were similar in many ways. He felt uncomfortable discussing his private life, emphasizing that it was a personal matter. He urged Jade to calm down, recognizing that the situation was escalating. He told Rosemary that she was too young to witness certain things and praised her eagerness to learn. He admitted to Aqua that he felt embarrassed by her pranks, even though he appreciated her care for him. John admired Bianca's organizational skills, noting how dedicated she was to her work compared to the leaders of the factions who often complained about paperwork. He reflected on the supernatural world, feeling disappointed in it and stating that he had left them to their fate, no longer caring about their problems. He expressed deep gratitude to Drake, his first friend, for always being there for him, especially during his lonelier times. John affirmed that he would not return to the factions, as he had a loving family now and would stand against anyone who threatened them. He thanked Nyx for her support, wishing he had met her sooner to avoid past hardships. He explained to Ophis that he was uncertain about the kind of love she sought but reassured her of her importance in his life. He acknowledged Persephone as a mother figure, appreciating her nurturing nature alongside Alcée. John recognized Hades' transformation from an enemy to a supportive ally, expressing gratitude for the change in their relationship. As for the factions, John was incredulous at their antics and acknowledged Surzex, noting the time that had passed since they last met. He made it clear that he would not persuade his wife to join the factions, leaving that decision to Juniper as the Empress of Arcadia. He confronted Azazel about his inappropriate comments regarding his wife, expressing his discontent. John firmly stated that he would not allow his daughters to be married off to any faction members, emphasizing that their choices were their own. He declared that he was no longer the weak boy they once looked down upon. Any threat to his family would be met with fierce resistance. He dismissed Rias, recalling her selfishness and ego, and contrasted her with a better version he had encountered. She was an assassin and a loyal hand of the royal family. She was a far better person than Ingvild, who was nothing short of a selfish brat. The speaker felt grateful to have met her. They advised Ingvild to go with Dai if she still considered them a liar and to stop wasting their time. Ingvild was described as someone who genuinely cared for her organization, Shadow, and was much like Rias of Arcadia, embodying the qualities the speaker had expected from Ingvild. They expressed indifference towards Ingvild's feelings for Dai, stating they had a loving family and that Ingvild was on her own from that point forward. To Dai, the speaker expressed disinterest in his words and demanded he stop staring at their wife. While holding and twisting Dai's hand, they remarked that he never learned, reminding him that they were once his older brother. They addressed Aquino, assuring her not to be upset, as Dai had been flirting with their daughters, who clearly wanted nothing to do with him. The speaker emphasized that it was their daughter's choice regarding whom they wished to spend time with. To Asia, the speaker pointed out that some of the girls were not interested in Dai, as some already had spouses. They told Yasaka that while they appreciated her compliment, they had no interest in her, noting that her mate had left her for a good reason, as he recognized her foolishness. During a confrontation with Dai, the speaker shouted for him to be quiet, asserting that he would never accomplish anything worthwhile. They tormented him further, stating that he never learned from his mistakes and that others would learn the truth that night. After exposing Dai, they warned him not to blame them for the situation, as he had brought it upon himself. The speaker accused Dai of taking credit for their accomplishments while ruining their life and vowed to dismantle everything he had achieved. To Surzex, after revealing Dai's true nature, the speaker accused him of shifting blame onto others and expressed indifference towards any deception he faced. They warned that if they ever saw him or any of the leaders snooping around Arcadia, they would take matters into their own hands. To Azazel, they declared their lack of interest in the women he mentioned, asserting that they already had partners who loved them for who they were. They threatened that if Azazel attempted any funny business, the consequences would be severe. To Zeus, with Juniper agreeing, they warned him not to consider any deceitful actions, stating that Arcadia would not tolerate any interference from the gods. They issued a warning to other factions with gods, emphasizing that they possessed weapons and abilities capable of defeating them and would not hesitate to eliminate them if provoked. To Shiva, they cautioned that if the factions attempted anything, they would not be able to save them. They advised that the arcs were not to be trifled with and indicated their intention to join them. They also mentioned their mother, Persephone, to Mickey. After renouncing Goru, Mickey, and Aika, the speaker expressed the burden of living in the shadow of their ex-siblings and always feeling like a loser. They recounted their efforts to help both the supernatural and the human world, despite being unappreciated. They declared their decision to distance themselves from the family they once called their own, now finding a home far away from them. To the supernatural, they revealed that the hero they admired had turned out to be a fraud, while the true hero had been scorned by the leaders. They announced their departure, stating they would no longer assist them with their problems. The leaders had made poor decisions, trusting the wrong people and condemning the right ones. The speaker warned that the consequences of those decisions would lead to suffering for everyone involved, bidding farewell with a sense of finality. In Arcadia, a figure welcomed Issei Hyoudou, acknowledging that they typically did not allow outsiders but sensed his intentions were not harmful. They noted that as long as Great Red behaved and did not cause destruction, all could stay, as many races from Issei's world were present. They expressed surprise at meeting Drake, a heavenly dragon with immense power, and recognized that he and Issei would make fine allies for Arcadia. They reassured Issei that Nicholas would not betray them, as the man they loved would remain loyal. In a moment of shock and despair, they confronted Nicholas, expressing their love for him and the pain of feeling betrayed after having children together. They declared that their children would not be pawns in Nicholas's schemes and expressed their determination to protect them. While crying, they apologized to Issei for not listening to him and expressed gratitude for his support, even as someone outside of Arcadia. They addressed the Arc children, lamenting that Nicholas had turned against them and had swayed many of their family members against Arcadia, admitting that they had tried to stop him but were too late. I trusted the wrong person, and this is what happened. Please forgive your mother for her foolishness. To Issei Hai, she expressed her plan to send her children to the Four Kingdoms for their safety, believing it was the only way to protect them, especially Rosemary. In shock, John learned that she wished to stay behind. With a genuine smile, she addressed John and the Arc sisters, acknowledging them as her children and expressing gratitude for their fight against Nicholas and those who had betrayed them. To Liam Arc, she admitted her mistake about him, revealing how he had turned many of her family members against them, exploiting their grievances, pride, and arrogance. He now sought to conquer them, and they needed to stop him. Regarding Vlad Arc, she confided in Alcee Arc that she should have anticipated his betrayal, as it was in his nature. She turned to Liam Arc, emphasizing the need to prepare, as the war would come at a great cost. Nicholas would pay for his sins, along with those who followed him. To Issei Hai, she expressed her gratitude for him and his family working alongside them, even when it wasn't requested. She acknowledged his relentless training, believing he would soon be on par with them, or perhaps even surpass them. To Drake, she noted his training as well, assuring him that Albion would stand no chance against him when the time came to return to Earth. To Jade, Bianca, and Aqua Arc, she conveyed her belief that they would bring the fight to an end. The Black Arms had become a significant problem, having infiltrated high-ranking positions in Arcadia and other cities. They needed to eliminate or subdue them at all costs. To Bianca Arc, she expressed her hatred for Nicholas, who had shattered her family. Despite wishing she had never met him, she acknowledged that it had led to the blessing of having wonderful children like them. She warned Saffron Arc to keep Tara and Adrian away from Nicholas, fearing what he might do if he got close to them. She also urged Saffron to stop Jackson and Andrew Arc, who were causing trouble in many cities. To John Arc, she advised him not to waste his time trying to impress someone like Nicholas. Even without power and magic, she and his sisters would love him unconditionally, as would the rest of the Arcs. Embracing John to calm him, she acknowledged his understandable anger and hatred but urged him not to let it control him. They needed to deal with those who had turned against them first. She commended John and his relatives for their success in defeating Jackson and Andrew Arc, recognizing their efforts. To Olivia Arc, she reminded her of her responsibilities, knowing she understood what needed to be done. Hugging Rosemary Arc and wiping her tears, she acknowledged the pain of betrayal but reassured her that Nicholas never truly loved them. He saw them merely as tools for his own ends, particularly wanting to exploit Rosemary's power of icons. They would not let him win, they would stop him. She expressed her relief that Rosemary understood this, promising that she and Issei would always be there for her. To Willow Schnee, she reflected on their shared experience of being in loveless marriages. To Ren, she reminisced about the old days, believing they could find a way to win the war, no matter the odds. She urged Ren to protect Lai and Li at all costs, emphasizing the need to prevent Nicholas from gaining the upper hand. To Nicholas Arc, she warned him about the nature of dragons and dragonborn. When they love, they do so unconditionally, but betrayal breeds a hatred that can eclipse that love. In her case, her hatred for him overshadowed any love she once had. She cautioned Nicholas that releasing her would bring doom to them all, and she would not allow it. To Issei Hyoudou, she declared her determination not to give up. Arcadia was her home and responsibility, and she would fight to protect the family her ancestors had built. She would defend Arcadia and her family until the very end. She expressed her relief that they would fight together, grateful to have Issei by her side. To Willow Schnee, she proclaimed that it was finally over, declaring that Nicholas's name would forever be associated with treachery and deception. To Issei Hyoudou, she pledged her loyalty to him until the very end, affirming that she was his. To John Arc, who was dumbfounded about his situation with Violet Evergarden, she expressed disbelief at the news. With a sweet smile, she told Issei it was time to de-escalate her little boy and asked him to step outside for a while. To Juniper Arc, she reminded him that his only responsibility was to be a good father. With tears in her eyes, she apologized to Issei Hyoudou, expressing her sorrow for the struggles he had faced. She understood why he had been hesitant to share his past and revealed that his brother, Dai, was as bad as Nicholas, using him for his own goals. She urged him to distance himself from that family. To Nyx, she playfully suggested that she would need to try harder to win Issei's affection. She warned Nyx that as long as Issei was all right, she would be too, but if Nyx hurt him, she would face consequences. To Ophis, she explained that Issei was a far better person than Nicholas. He had been there for her during her lowest moments, and her children looked up to him as family. He chose to be there for them when others feared or sought to exploit Ophis for her powers. To Persephone, she expressed her willingness to call her mother. In disbelief, she asked Issei Hyoudou why he had declined the opportunity to be the first non-Arc-born chosen as the emperor. The empress expressed her desire to have Issei Hyoudou rule by her side, acknowledging that he had no interest in ruling Arcadia. Instead, he aimed to protect the kingdom by leading its armies to victory and ensuring the safety of its people. Despite his reluctance, he was still viewed as the emperor, and she vowed to support him as his empress. To the faction leaders, she inquired about their motives for contacting Arcadia and how they had learned of its existence. She made it clear to Surzex that she was not interested in forming alliances with those she deemed untrustworthy and potentially harmful to Arcadia. When Surzex insulted Issei, she firmly stated that such disrespect would not be tolerated, emphasizing that if he sought an alliance, he was failing miserably. Addressing Azazel, she reminded him that this meeting was for an alliance and urged him to take it seriously. She dismissed Dai, asserting her disinterest in him. Raising her aura, She made it clear that as Issei's wife, he was to address her with the respect due to an empress or as his sister-in-law. She warned Rias that if she ever insulted Issei again, she would ensure Rias regretted it. Ingvild was met with a swift reprimand, as the empress made it clear that she would not tolerate any attempts to control her or her family. She urged Ika to listen to her brother before blindly following Dai, who she sensed had ulterior motives. She pointed out that Dai was dating a widow, questioning why Issei could not be with her. Her stance on the alliance remained firm, as she expressed her disdain for the faction leaders who disrespected Issei. She noted that they had failed to keep Dai in check, allowing him to insult and threaten her family. The blame for Dai's actions lay with the leaders who had been deceived by his lies. When confronted by Zeus, she stood resolute, stating that if he dared to attack her family, they would not hesitate to defend themselves. She highlighted Issei's strength and the power of Arcadia, warning that they would not hesitate to retaliate against any threats. As Issei confronted Dai during their fight, the Empress found satisfaction in seeing Dai face the consequences of his actions. She reflected on her initial impressions of Dai, recalling how he reminded her of her ex-husband, who had caused her family pain. She had no regrets about refusing to join the alliance, reiterating that Arcadia's problems were not theirs to bear. She emphasized that a true leader takes responsibility for their subordinates' failures and criticized the faction leaders for allowing Dai to act without restraint. She pointed out that their failure to see through his lies was their own fault, not Dai's. To Zeus, she reiterated that Arcadia would not hesitate to defend itself against Olympus. She promised that if he harmed her loved ones, she and Issei would seek retribution. She reminded Mickey that what she had done to Issei was unforgivable and that he was now in a better place, deserving of peace. To those who had loved Dai, she revealed the truth about him, calling him a fraud who cared only for their appearances. She urged them to recognize their misguided choices and accept the consequences of their decisions. Finally, she expressed her disappointment in Ingvild, noting that her counterpart from another world was kind and helpful, while Ingvild's actions had fallen short of those standards. Issei had endured immense pain, and he vowed never to forgive those who had wronged him. He felt a deep sense of betrayal from the faction leaders, wishing them to face the consequences of their actions, knowing that neither he nor Arcadia would ever extend a helping hand to them. In the heart of a bustling city, perpetually shrouded in clouds, lived a boy named Issei Hyoudou. From the moment he entered the world, it seemed as though fate had conspired against him. Issei's life was overshadowed by the presence of his younger brother, Dai, who had taken everything that should have been Issei's. Dai was the golden child of the Hyoudou family, handsome, charismatic, and ambitious. He effortlessly drew attention, while Issei's kindness became his downfall. Dai knew how to manipulate situations to keep the spotlight on himself, leaving Issei with mere remnants of a life that should have been his. Issei had devoted himself to those around him, sacrificing his time, happiness, and dreams to improve their lives. Yet, despite his unwavering loyalty, he faced nothing but contempt from those who should have appreciated his efforts. Only a few had believed in him, and even fewer had loved him genuinely. The bitter taste of rejection and injustice became his constant companions. Though his actions often went unnoticed, they were the reason the supernatural world remained hidden from the oblivious human population. Instead of gratitude, he was blamed for the smallest misfortunes, his name used as a scapegoat for his family's problems. As memories flooded back, Issei felt tears welling in his eyes, haunted by the hurtful words of those he had encountered. He recalled the rejection, the dismissive comments that echoed in his mind. The voices of those who had turned away from him replayed relentlessly, each one a reminder of his loneliness. The images of the girls who had rejected him blurred together, their disdain cutting deeper than any physical wound. In a moment of anger, Issei grabbed a family photo, his heart racing as he looked at the faces of those who were supposed to love him. Instead, they treated him as if he were worthless. He felt a surge of rage as he remembered their cruel words, the dismissals that stung like daggers. In a fit of frustration, he hurled the photo frame against the wall, shattering it into pieces. He picked up the remnants, not caring about the glass that pricked his skin, feeling only the anger that had replaced his sadness. Issei tore the image into shreds, tears streaming down his face as he realized he did not want a family that looked down on him. He felt a deep-seated hatred for the way they had treated him. The final voice in his head echoed with a cruel taunt, pushing him further into despair. In a moment of desperation, he unleashed a burst of flames, incinerating the remnants of his past. Determined to change his fate, Issei began to chant the incantation of the Juggernaut Drive, fueled by the anger that coursed through him. He had enough life force to bring destruction to Kuo, and he was prepared to unleash his wrath. But just as he was about to utter the final words, a voice interrupted him, reminding him that this was not the path he intended to take. Tonight was meant to be the night he left everything behind. With a small bag of belongings and a heavy heart, Issei made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He walked away from the prison of his past, determined to leave it all behind, never looking back. As he picked up his duffel bag, he summoned his dragon wings and leaped from the window, landing gracefully on the ground. In that moment, 3 figures appeared before him. The first was a tall woman with long black hair and striking red eyes, dressed in a white school shirt, a red jacket, and black leggings. The second person wore a noble black and red dress adorned with beautiful roses and black fishnet stockings, complemented by designer high-heeled shoes. They were waiting for something significant to unfold. She wore a crown made of roses and a golden necklace adorned with a bright red jewel. The third figure was a tall and handsome man sporting a specially designed eye patch over his right eye and long, stylish silver hair that spiked in various directions. A leaf-like pattern tattoo adorned his forehead, complemented by a spiked choker necklace and a bead-like earring on his left ear, which featured several smaller piercings. His attire was formal and extravagant, with a collar that reached his upper chest and badges decorating both sides of his coat. He completed his look with long white jeans and shoes featuring square patterns. Issei looked at them, and Nyx, the first to speak, asked if he was ready for this. He nodded, taking one last look at his old home, which felt almost like a prison. A frown crossed his face as he reflected on his past, expressing his desire to see if there was anything he had left behind. The trio nodded in understanding, aware of the emotional weight he carried. Persephone, with concern in her voice, expressed her worries for Issei. Hades sighed, acknowledging his wife's concern with a somber tone. He spoke of Issei's need for closure, recalling how much he had done for others without receiving love or respect in return. Hades felt a sense of relief in being considered a rogue god, lamenting that even those Issei truly loved had chosen his brother over him. He expressed his disdain for the factions, noting that even Athena seemed blind to their corruption, while he was uncertain about the Hindu gods' views on Issei, who were among the few that did not harbor hatred for him. Persephone nodded in agreement, while Nyx clenched her fist in anger, wishing to confront Ingvild for the pain she had caused Issei. She lamented that Ingvild was the reason for his depression and his decision to leave behind those who had shown him ingratitude. Nyx expressed concern about what they might have done had they discovered Issei's true identity as the Red Dragon Emperor. Persephone, fueled by anger, declared that if they had harmed Issei, she would have taken matters into her own hands against Dai for his involvement, feeling that he had no right to approach either her or Issei after turning Ingvild against him. Hades reminded her that their anger was understandable, but they needed to remain composed, as the factions were now merely following Dai's orders. Persephone gritted her teeth in frustration, feeling helpless as she watched the situation unfold. Meanwhile, Issei was in his room, opening the fridge to find it stocked with hundreds of bottles of Diet Coke. Using magic, he created a separate dimensional space with a cooling system. He observed the celebration of Nyx's defeat, which had occurred weeks after the sealing of Trihexa, grateful that the kitchen was located on the top floor, away from the festivities. Suddenly, he heard a voice that ignited his anger. Dai Hyu, his brother, with fair skin, brown eyes, and brown hair, approached him with a mocking tone, calling him useless. Issei sighed, feeling annoyed as he asked what Dai wanted. Dai wore an arrogant smile as he thanked Issei for everything he had done for him. Issei felt a surge of frustration but chose to remain calm, uninterested in engaging with Dai at that moment. He turned to leave, but Dai grabbed his shoulder, prompting Issei to respond with irritation, asking him to leave if he was just wasting his time. As Issei attempted to walk away, Dai grinned and began to boast about his inappropriate encounters with Ingvild. Before he could finish, Issei reacted instinctively, delivering a punch to Dai's chin that sent him crashing into a nearby wall. Issei then cast a sound barrier, ensuring no one could intervene. His ability to perform such feats stemmed from the training he received from Drake, who had taught him various forms of magic, including a specialized technique for reading memories, allowing him to access the thoughts of powerful magicians without their awareness. To many, Issei was seen as a useless brother, but with Drake and Great Red's guidance, he learned at an accelerated pace. Dai, now furious, shouted at Issei, but before he could act further, Issei applied pressure to Dai's chest, causing him to yelp in pain. Issei declared that he was done listening to his brother's boastful remarks and delivered a swift kick to Dai's chin, nearly cracking it, followed by a stomp back onto his chest. Dai coughed, glaring at Issei with anger and hatred, which caused Issei to flinch slightly. He had never understood the depth of Dai's animosity toward him or why he sought to make his life miserable, from spreading rumors to taking credit for his achievements and pursuing the girls Issei cared for. Feeling that he was wasting his time, Issei decided to leave, stepping away from Dai, who continued to mock him with threats of telling the factions about him, vowing that they would torment Issei relentlessly. Issei gritted his teeth, turning back toward Dai. He called upon Drake, requesting a boost to his legs, determined to make his brother remember him. Drake responded affirmatively, ready to lend Issei the power he needed. He positioned himself between Dai's legs and, with a swift motion, delivered a kick aimed at his lower body with such blinding speed that no one could see it. The force of the kick was enough to leave Dai in agony, clutching himself in pain as Issei walked away, a haughty expression on his face. He taunted Dai, suggesting he should tell everyone how he had overwhelmed him and crushed him like an insect, revealing the truth about his character. As Issei descended the stairs, he noticed everyone looking at him with disapproval, as if he had brought a plague upon them. Rias Gremory, the pampered princess he knew well, asked him where his brother was. Issei shrugged, expressing indifference. When Rias pressed him, insisting that Dai had gone upstairs to find him, Issei dismissed her concerns, suggesting she should look for him instead of interrogating him. Rias was momentarily speechless, but Asia, filled with anger, insisted that Issei should know where Dai was. Issei coldly interrupted her, mocking her for wanting to attack a regular human. His words sent a shiver down Asia's spine, leaving the group in silence. Issei then closed the door behind him, uninterested in their opinions. The Gremory peerage, frustrated by Issei's behavior, considered following him, but Rias stopped them, expressing that there was no need to pursue him. She suggested they enjoy themselves instead and asked Asia to look for Dai. Meanwhile, Issei stepped outside and was greeted by his real family. Nyx, concerned, asked if he was all right. He assured her he was fine, having just dealt with a few hiccups, and felt satisfied with putting Dai in his place. Persephone chimed in, suggesting he should have recorded the incident to see Dai's condition. Before Issei could respond, Hades received a communication and informed them that Melano and Macaria had reached the dimensional gap, and it was time for them to head there as well. The trio nodded in agreement as Hades opened a portal to the dimensional gap. Issei created a protective magic bubble, aware of the instability of the dimensional gap. He wanted to ensure the safety of his family, even though he knew they would be fine. Hades smiled, teasing Issei about the unnecessary caution, but Issei maintained that he couldn't take any risks. Issei had become surprisingly adept with magic. After learning memory read, he was able to access the memories of Arthur Pendragon and Ajuka Beelzebub, which allowed him to read and create spells that enabled him to traverse the dimensional gap without difficulty. After traveling for a while, they encountered a massive red western dragon, a creature of impressive size with 2 sets of wings. A few days later, Issei and his family had settled in Arcadia. He recalled the history of the kingdom, founded by the 4 founders, Aurora Arc, Aurelia Arc, Anastasia Arc, and Apricity Arc, daughters of the immortal Grim Queen Salem and the wizard Ozma. As he walked through the academies, he contemplated his next steps, guided by Juniper. Issei considered mastering magic, realizing his potential when he created concealment magic to hide Drake from those who would seek to exploit him. He was determined never to part with his best friend and would do anything to protect him. He also had aspirations for the Academy, wanting to develop technological weapons that would benefit Arcadia. His family members had their own interests in various academies. Macaria was drawn to Strixhaven Academy, known for its intelligence, while Nyx wanted to learn magic like Issei. Melano was still deciding on her choice. Ophis and Great Red visited the Dragon Kingdom, where they were welcomed, but Ophis expressed a desire to stay with Issei, who encouraged her to visit anytime. Hades and Persephone were also interested in the academies, with Hades wanting to learn military strategy at Megalocene Academy and Persephone aiming for the Academy of Carano. They all agreed on their choices. Issei turned to Drake, asking where they should begin their journey. Drake suggested they head to the aptly named Magic Academy. Issei was advised to prepare himself, as Olivia Arc had mentioned that the academy was one of the most challenging to enter. He nodded in understanding, deep in thought about when the entrance exams would take place. Suddenly, a voice interrupted his contemplation. In that moment he felt a familiar presence and turned around to see the Empress. He greeted her respectfully, acknowledging the time that had passed since their last meeting. The Empress smiled and informed him that he was fortunate. She explained that the magic exams for the academy would occur in just 2 days. It was a difficult entrance process, and she urged him to be ready. Issei nodded again, absorbing the information. The Empress then mentioned that someone wanted to meet him, his new instructor. With a wave of her hand, the Empress chanted a spell, and in an instant, both Issei and she were transported to the designated location. A loading screen appears, progressing from 0% to 100%. Issei gazes in awe at the Arcadian capital, witnessing the academies engage in battle. The Arc siblings display their impressive fighting skills, while Issei showcases his abilities, assisting the original 15 in their mission. Scenes from Issei's past flash before him, where he faced mockery from others. He contemplates whether saving these people is still worthwhile. As he walks through Kuo, Issei feels a deep sadness over how his past was shattered, taken from him by his brother. Anger wells up inside him, and he strikes a nearby image of his family. Issei is seen training alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana. For the first time, he feels a genuine bond with someone, accompanied by a silhouette of the Big A memory surfaces of him asking Azazel for training, only to be ignored. He recalls his persistent attempts to seek training from Graphia, which were met with rejection, and a threat that forced him to back down. Determined, Issei shatters the memories of his past and runs toward Arcadia, embracing his new family. The settlements of Arcadia unfold before him, revealing various cities as he and Nyx explore with wonder. The scene shifts to Persephone and Hades, who are diligently studying in their respective academies, expanding their knowledge. Issei shares a growing friendship with the members of the original 15 and Nyx, with a shadowy figure looming in the background. Issei finds himself in a friendly clash with a blonde-haired boy, both wearing confident smirks as a blonde-haired woman and Nyx cheer them on. As he looks around Arcadia, where he is loved and cared for, he reflects on the hatred he faced in his old world. He realizes that a place that did not appreciate him does not deserve him. Issei struggles to recall his past feelings for the girls, but those memories fade away. He soon encounters a version of Ingvild that differs from the one he knew. Issei was pushed forward by the Big Three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and her family watched in happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas smirked as he observed several men armed with weapons, targeting the Arc family. His desire to rule was evident, and Juniper's expression turned to one of horror and despair. Issei stepped up to help Juniper, encouraging her during this difficult time. He also offered hope to the Arc family, understanding their sadness and despair. Together with his family, Issei prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as memories of Dai flooded back. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, they fell before him, while Great Red and Ophis took down many more. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, further angering the man as he fought against 2 members of the Arc family. He watched in horror as Juniper mirrored his expression upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings battled against the traitors of the Arc clan, while a red-haired woman watched with a sinister look on her face. The Big Three, along with Issei, fought against the last of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper clashed with Nicholas, Issei assisted her, both of them smiling as they approached the end of the fight. Issei shook his head, shocking the Arc Council, who had wanted him to become the emperor. Even Juniper was taken aback by his response. Together, Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia. Now that things were improving, smiles brightening their faces. With loving smiles, Issei and Juniper stood before a wedding hall. The scene shifted to show Issei with a different appearance, standing proudly alongside the Arc family. A few hours later, the elder Arcs gathered in the Arc Council chambers, a royal room adorned with holographic statues of Arcadian monarchs and decorated with the Arc clan banner. Liam Arc, Juniper's father, initiated the meeting. Described as a blonde-haired man with white dragon horns and scales, he wore a white shirt and brown coat, his arms also bearing dragon scales. Liam spoke seriously, acknowledging Issei Hyoudou's presence and the power he possessed, which could not be ignored. He wanted to learn more about the boy. Issei Arc, his wife and Juniper's mother, agreed, expressing that they needed to guide Issei to make the right choices in life. Galeth Arc, an imposing figure with black hair and bright gold eyes, noted that Issei's power could attract both foes and friends, mentioning the Dragon Drake's potential to defeat a Deathless. Some Arcs agreed with Issei's perspective, suggesting they let Issei live his life peacefully. Artemis Arc, Juniper's younger sister, argued that Issei was just a teenager and should be allowed to live without interference, as long as he did not seek involvement. Elizabeth Arc, Juniper's older sister, expressed concern about Issei's flames and their potential for destruction if left uncontrolled. Arthur Arc suggested that someone should speak to Issei to ensure he did not fall into the hands of their enemies. He believed they should approach him in a friendly manner, as he was not their enemy, and they should not make him one. Lupin Arc volunteered to talk to Issei, expressing his willingness to befriend the boy and help him build a new life in their world. He wore a purple cloth wrapped around his waist. Julius Arc, a tall man with gray hair tied in a ponytail and gray eyes, dressed in a military-style formal uniform of red and black, spoke with authority. He suggested that Issei needed to meet someone he could trust, someone who had at least met him once. He proposed that Jean should be the one to help Issei adjust to this new world, as he wished to live a normal life. Jean agreed, expressing her willingness to support the boy until he was ready to embrace his new life. Juniper then interjected, asking if she could take on the responsibility. The council was initially surprised but quickly recognized that Juniper was the person Issei knew best. She made her case, stating that Issei was already training with Willow, so there should be no issues. The council members exchanged glances and nodded in agreement. Liam spoke seriously, confirming that Issei would be under Juniper's care, along with the rest of his family. Issei then declared the council adjourned. As the members dispersed, Juniper took a deep breath, knowing that Issei was now her responsibility. She thought of her son, John Arc, who could help Issei adjust to his new school, the Magic Academy. At 3:30 p.m. in the Magic Academy, Arcadia, Issei and Nyx sat in their classroom. Aqua Arc, the second daughter of Nicholas and Juniper, was their teacher. Described as a blonde woman with gray eyes, Aqua wore a military uniform consisting of a white and green skirt and held a sniper rifle behind her back. She wore gloves and heels with one leg adorned in leggings. Aqua explained how to create fire magic with a radius of 20 meters and a height of 10 meters, emphasizing the importance of having enough mana to sustain oneself. As the students took notes, Aqua scanned the room and recognized Issei and Nyx. Issei was particularly notable for being a rare talent, having achieved Orichalcum rank, the second strongest in the academy, indicating his high potential. She called Issei to the front, asking him to solve a problem. The other students murmured among themselves, impressed by Issei's status as a prodigy. Issei felt annoyed by the attention, and Drake, his inner dragon, teased him telepathically about it. Issei retorted in frustration. Aqua, smiling, asked if Issei could perform basic water magic. She reassured him that there would be no pressure, even if he couldn't. Issei nodded, claiming he could do it. Aqua beamed and encouraged him to demonstrate. He stepped back and generated a small ball of water magic in his palms, showing it to Aqua. She smiled and praised him, allowing him to return to his seat. As Issei sat down, memories of his past flooded back. He recalled the day he unlocked his magical potential. He had stolen a book of basic spells from the Gremory family, knowing they wouldn't miss it since it was a low-level book. Unlike his siblings, who were prodigies, Issei had never developed any magical talent, leading to his ostracism within his own family. He remembered struggling to cast a small fireball spell from the book. Drake expressed concern, suggesting they could change Issei's body to allow him to have magic reserves, but Issei insisted on trying on his own. Drake, aware of the abuse Issei had suffered due to his lack of talent, felt powerless to intervene. Issei wrote the spell in what appeared to be a small magic circle on a white glove. He wore the gloves and attempted the magic, snapping his fingers, but nothing happened. Disappointed, he wondered where he had gone wrong and resolved to work harder. He modified the gloves, using ink he had also taken from the Gremory family. Drake spoke sadly as Issei tried again and again, failing multiple times throughout the day. Eventually, despair overwhelmed him, and he struck the ground in frustration, questioning the cruelty of the world. In his anger, he accidentally scorched the ground, shocking himself with the unexpected result. Drake was caught off guard as he realized the extent of Issei's magic potential. After checking his magic reserves, he found them overwhelming, almost on par with a high-level magician, or even beyond that. Drake theorized that with the right training, Issei could reach a level comparable to the strongest of his hosts. Drake exclaimed with enthusiasm that Issei had remarkable magic potential, even surpassing that of his siblings. He noted that Issei was a late bloomer but had the potential to become a powerful magician once everything was settled. Issei felt a surge of happiness and focused on calming the fire he had conjured, finding it relatively easy to extinguish it by closing his eyes and concentrating. He pondered what to do next, feeling the weight of his family's expectations. They had never truly seen him for who he was, only valuing his potential. Drake understood Issei's frustration and advised him to show them what he could do. However, if they continued to favor his brother, Issei should not feel compelled to prove himself to them. Issei nodded in agreement, relieved that they were unaware of his identity as the Red Dragon Emperor. He dedicated himself to learning as many spells as possible, taking notes and creating several gloves adorned with different magic circles. For 2 days, he practiced with the gloves before switching to practicing without them. He mastered basic and intermediate spells with ease, remaining undetected by others. Once he felt confident, he teleported back to the Gremory mansion to return a book he no longer needed, as he had the gloves for practice. He concealed the book and its contents before anyone could notice. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a voice calling out to him. Graphia, a beautiful young woman with long silver hair and striking silver eyes, appeared. She wore a blue and white French-made outfit and regarded Issei with a cold demeanor. Issei explained that he had been reading some books and would be leaving soon. Graphia acknowledged his presence with a sigh, expressing relief that he had not made a mess. Her cold tone made Issei flinch, reminding him of the Gremory clan's indifference toward him due to misunderstandings. She instructed him to leave quickly, not wanting him to linger in the mansion. Issei clenched his fists in frustration as she exited the room. Determined, Issei resolved to learn magic in secret. He eventually mastered memory read, allowing him to access the memories of other magicians and learn their spells. In a flashback, Issei sat as Aqua concluded her lecture. She then requested to speak with him and Nyx in her office. The two students nodded and made their way to Aqua's office, where Issei knocked on the door. Aqua welcomed them with a smile as she finished her paperwork. She inquired about their experiences in Arcadia, and Issei shared that he found peace in the new environment. Aqua acknowledged his magical abilities, noting that he could generate flames that were immune to water and cold, capable of erasing all traces of a target. Issei explained that the spell, Blazing Inferno of Scorching Flames, was taught to him by a friend from his old world and could even defeat gods. Aqua expressed her intention to guide Issei in his magical studies, and then turned her attention to Nyx, asking about her time in Arcadia. Nyx shared her relief at no longer being alone, having spent a long time in her own world. Aqua noted Nyx's proficiency in darkness magic and inquired if she could perform any other types of magic. Nyx confirmed her abilities in elemental magic, hypnosis, and sealing magic. Aqua was impressed by the magical talents of both students and wondered if there were others with similar capabilities. She asked if they were enjoying the campus life, and they both expressed their satisfaction, with Nyx mentioning how nice it was to be treated as a student. Aqua received a message on her scroll, smiling as she informed them that their dorms were ready and that her brother was waiting for them. Issei and Nyx understood who she meant and decided to head to their new accommodations. They bid farewell to Aqua and left the office, making their way to the dorms. As they arrived at the dorms, they noticed other students discussing Issei's magical prowess, which had garnered admiration and attention. However, they made sure not to let Issei hear about it. Unfortunately, Issei overheard everything and managed a wry smile. He was not used to receiving this much attention. Once they reached their designated dorms, they saw someone waiting for them outside. He was a blonde-haired man with light blue eyes, dressed in knightly armor and a blue shirt, holding a large broadsword. Issei noted the strong aura he emitted. John Arc approached them, greeting them warmly. He introduced himself, mentioning that Aqua had told him about them and that his mother had asked him to help them settle into Arcadia. Issei nodded in agreement, expressing his gratitude for John's assistance. John confirmed that the dorms were designed for 2 people, equipped with proper beds, a television, a kitchen with all necessary appliances, air conditioning in each room and the hall, and 2 bathrooms for the residents. He explained that the rooms were well furnished, cleaned daily, and had their own Wi-Fi connection compatible with their scrolls. Lunch and dinner times were posted on the fridge. Nyx and Issei were surprised by the dorm's amenities. The television room was well furnished and had an air conditioner mounted on the wall. It felt like a proper home with state-of-the-art technology. John pointed out the door leading to the balcony, suggesting they visit once they finished settling in. He then showed them the kitchen, which included an oven, microwave, and fridge, explaining that while they would need to buy their own ingredients, some basic items were provided. They moved on to the bedrooms, where John indicated that each room was similar and suggested they take one each. Nyx chose the left room while Issei took the right. John opened the door to Issei's room, revealing an additional air conditioner, a bathroom on the left, and modern technology throughout, along with some decorations. He encouraged them to settle in, and Issei nodded appreciatively. An hour later, with John's help, the duo had settled down. Nyx expressed her gratitude to John, who responded with a cheeky grin, assuring them it was no trouble. He then mentioned that his older sister, Bianca, wanted to speak with Issei and asked him to come for a moment. Issei agreed and asked Nyx to wait for him, to which she responded that she didn't mind and would take her time. As Issei and John left the room, Nyx lay on her bed, content to rest for a while as a new student. At the military academy, which was futuristic and well-designed, Issei was in awe of the sci-fi aesthetic, with its impressive pillars and water features. John encouraged him to head inside, where they overheard students discussing Issei and John's reputations, one as a mage who achieved orichalcum during initiation and the other as the Prince of Arcadia, known for his kindness. Issei felt uneasy about the attention, expressing his discomfort, while John suggested he should get used to it, given his impressive feat. They made their way to Bianca's office, where she and Jean awaited them, guarded by 2 soldiers in futuristic armor. Unbeknownst to them, another person was waiting as well. John knocked on the door, and a voice from inside invited them in. They entered to find a tall woman with brown hair and blue eyes, part of her hair braided and adorned with a small gold ornament. She wore platinum armor with gold trimmings and purple and brown robes. Recognizing Issei from her mother's description, she welcomed them. Before Bianca could finish her introduction, 2 voices interrupted, startling everyone. One was John's, while the other belonged to a tall woman with long straight hair and blue eyes, dressed in a black skirt and white shirt with golden buttons. Bianca attempted to defuse the situation, aware of the tension between the two women, while John reacted angrily. Issei was taken aback, and Jean rubbed her forehead in annoyance, knowing that these two did not get along. Issei looked at the two individuals before him, sensing the tension in the air. John and the woman were glaring at each other, and Jean took the opportunity to explain the situation to him. She informed Issei that the woman glaring at John was Scarlett Madison, and that these two had been at odds for quite some time, unable to find common ground. Issei nodded in understanding as Bianca interjected, urging both parties to calm down since they were in an important meeting. Bianca introduced Issei to Scarlett, noting that he was a new student. Issei approached Scarlett and offered a friendly greeting, but she scoffed and pushed his hand away, leaving him visibly startled. John quickly reprimanded Scarlett for her lack of courtesy, reminding her that it was no way to welcome a new student. Scarlett retorted coldly, asserting that John, despite being the Prince of Arcadia, had no authority over her actions. This response caused both Jean and Bianca to frown, while John's frustration was evident. Issei couldn't understand why Scarlett harbored such animosity towards someone as kind as John. John, frustrated, turned to Bianca and asked why Scarlett was present. Bianca explained that John would be Scarlett's commanding officer and that she would be part of the battalion under Officer Clover. John nodded in acceptance, but Scarlett was clearly displeased with the arrangement. She pleaded with Bianca, expressing her reluctance to be paired with someone like John. Despite John's calm demeanor, he was unhappy with Scarlett's behavior, which had not changed over the years. Bianca reiterated that the military's decision was final, and Scarlett would have to join John's battalion. In a fit of anger, Scarlett stormed out of the room, leaving John glaring after her, upset by her disrespect toward her sister and aunt. Issei, curious, asked John about Scarlett's animosity. John sighed deeply, explaining that Scarlett had been a source of annoyance since grad school. She resented him for being the Prince of Arcadia and for his academic success, believing he didn't work hard for it. He described her as aggressive and rude to many, but acknowledged that it was his duty as her commanding officer to look after her. Issei nodded in respect for John's sense of responsibility. Bianca then turned to Issei, apologizing for the earlier incident and inquiring about his adjustment to the dorms. Issei expressed his gratitude, crediting John for helping him settle in. Bianca smiled and handed him 2 envelopes, each containing 10,000 lien, advising him to use the money wisely for his needs. She explained that one envelope was for him and the other for his dorm mates. Jean added that if Issei needed anything, he could reach out to them with a few hours' notice. After expressing his gratitude once more, Issei left the room. Bianca then turned to John, apologizing for the challenges he would face with Scarlett until his graduation. John reassured her that he would manage, emphasizing that it was his responsibility. He noted that one day, when he took up his mother's place, he would be crowned emperor and would have to deal with all kinds of people, including Scarlett. Both Bianca and Jean smiled at his determination. Bianca informed John that the rest of his battalion members were waiting, suggesting that he should get along with them since they would be working together for a long time. John nodded in understanding and left the room, while the two women pondered how he would handle the difficult situation with Scarlett, hoping for a brighter future for all involved. A few months later, at the academy dorms, the clock struck 6 a.m. The academy's classes would begin at 9 a.m., but Issei was already immersed in his research on magic. He often dedicated his free time to this pursuit, balancing his own classes with Willow's training, which had helped him grow stronger. He was acutely aware of his weaknesses and was determined to overcome them. He had adjusted well to the academy's curriculum and Willow's training whenever she had the opportunity to guide him. Meanwhile, Nyx was still asleep in her bed, wishing for a little more rest. Issei, however, was focused on the books about magic that Aqua had given him. As he read, he began to draw a magic circle on his gloves, with Draig providing commentary. "This brings back memories, doesn't it?" Issei remarked, glancing at his best friend. "Indeed, I can't deny it. It's reminiscent of memory read magic and concealment magic. The factions were so blinded by their own arrogance that they overlooked my magical abilities. My brother may have stolen the spotlight, but he only trained to maintain his facade of strength. I wonder how they are handling the situation now. Drake shook his head. That doesn't matter. They're on their own. We should take this practice outside, Drake suggested. Issei nodded, rising from his seat and heading out of his dorm room, knowing that Nix would wake up soon and he still had time before class. Once downstairs, he arrived at the training area, where several dummies awaited him, reminiscent of his initiation. The gloves he wore began to glow a bright yellow, and energy blasts started to gather at his side. Issei leaped into the air and chanted, "Light Storm Barrage." He unleashed a flurry of holy light energy toward the training dummies. The barrage struck the dummies, causing noticeable damage but not complete destruction. Issei acknowledged that he needed to channel more mana into the spell. However, his immediate goal was to master the spell without relying on the gloves. Suddenly, someone called out to him from above. Issei turned to see a familiar one-winged angel descending gracefully, greeting him with a smile. "How is your training going, young man?" she asked. Issei replied, "It's going quite well. I've been learning holy light magic, which will be useful against demonic enemies." Willow nodded, noticing the gloves on his hands and the incantation circle drawn on them. "So that's how you practice? You use magic gloves to grasp the magic you wish to learn, and eventually, you remove them to use the magic freely, right?" Issei confirmed her deduction. "Yep, that's how I learned most of my magic. Dragon fire magic was easier since it was ingrained in my memory, but the others I had to learn from scratch. I never actually intended to learn holy light magic, but I want to create something new, something Arcadia has never seen." Willow nodded in agreement, and Issei took a seat beside her. "Kid, what you're trying to do is ambitious. I would advise you to slow down." Issei acknowledged her advice. "Yes, sensei." Willow then asked a question that caught Issei off guard. "Issei, may I ask you something?" Issei looked at her and nodded. "Where are your parents? What happened to them?" The question took Issei by surprise, as he had never expected her to inquire about his family. As the scene shifted, a loading screen appeared, progressing from 0% to 100%. Issei was seen gazing at the Arcadian capital in awe, witnessing the academies in action. The Arc siblings showcased their fighting skills, while Issei demonstrated his own abilities, assisting the original 15 in their mission. Issei was pushed forward by the Big Three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and his family watched with happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he observed several men armed with weapons, targeting the Arc family. His desire for power was evident, and Juniper's expression shifted to one of horror and despair. Issei helped Juniper, encouraging her during this difficult time. He also instilled hope in the Arc family, understanding their sadness and despair. Issei and his family prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting their teeth as memories of Dai resurfaced. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, he fought fiercely, while Great Red and Ophis overwhelmed many of their enemies. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, which only fueled Nicholas's anger as he battled against two members of the Arc family. He watched in horror as Juniper mirrored his expression upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings fought against the traitors of the Arc clan, while a red-haired woman displayed a sinister look. The Big Three, along with Issei, engaged the last of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper clashed with Nicholas, Issei assisted her, both of them smiling as they brought the fight to an end. Issei shook his head, shocking the Arc Council, who had hoped he would become the Emperor. Even Juniper was taken aback by his response. Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, now that things were improving, smiles lighting their faces. Issei and Juniper shared a loving smile as a wedding hall came into view. The scene shifted to Issei, now with a different appearance, standing with the Arc family behind him. Issei, feeling confused, hoped that Willow would not inquire about his past, as he wished to leave it behind. Willow expressed her curiosity about his parentage, noting his exceptional magical skills and powerful sword. Issei looked away, reluctant to discuss it. He firmly stated that he did not wish to talk about it, catching Willow off guard. She asked why, but Issei shook his head and remained silent. Understanding his hesitation, Willow sighed and said she would not force him to speak, suggesting that perhaps he would share when he felt comfortable. Issei apologized, and Willow reassured him that it was all right. Willow then suggested they begin their training. Issei nodded and summoned Excalibur, which glowed with flames and a golden light. He held it confidently, transitioning into an offensive stance. Willow smirked as she drew Masamune, preparing for their duel. The two charged at each other, their swords clashing and creating a massive shockwave that shook the surroundings. After 2 hours of intense training, Issei lay on the ground, exhausted. Willow stood over him, her blade beside him, praising his tenacity and capability. Issei managed to rise, breathing heavily, admitting he had not landed a single hit on her. Willow nodded, her tone serious as she instructed him to train in his balance breaker state next time. Issei agreed, and with her help, he dispelled Excalibur and regained his composure. Willow smiled and reminded him that he had only a few minutes before his class. He nodded and teleported back to his room. Willow sat down, and soon Juniper appeared in the field, inquiring about Issei's progress. Willow described him as persistent, and Juniper smiled, noting that she had heard he wished to compete in the Academy of Technology. Willow confirmed this, and Juniper pondered the challenges he would face, including military service after graduation. Willow agreed, expressing concern about the demanding path ahead of him. Juniper suggested that Issei should focus on one aspect of his career while also exploring technology, given his clear interest in the field. Willow nodded, adding that perhaps Jade or Aqua could assist him in his technological pursuits. Juniper agreed and decided to inform Aqua, hoping to see if Issei was interested. Willow then took off, while Juniper teleported back to manage the Empire. Magic Academy, 10 a.m. A young woman with long red hair and blue eyes, styled with a single strand of her bangs braided and the sides pulled back, stood before her class. Lilith Asami, known for her impressive figure, explained the day's lesson. She pointed to the smart board and instructed the students to attempt combining the element of rock with fire. While there was a slight chance of misfiring, she assured them that if executed properly, they would manage without issue. After asking if there were any questions and receiving silence in response, Lilith smiled and concluded the session. She left the smart board, allowing Nyx and Issei to converse among themselves. Issei inquired about Nyx's early morning activities. She explained that she had been training in holy light magic to prepare for the upcoming semester examinations, where candidates would need to develop a magic they had never used in class. Issei expressed curiosity about what the factions back home might be doing, to which Nyx shrugged, suggesting that the girls were likely trying to impress Dai as usual. Nyx frowned at the mention of Ingvild, a Leviathan descendant, and wondered if the factions had discovered their whereabouts. Issei teased her, suggesting that even if they were searching, Arcadia was far from Earth, making it nearly impossible for them to find them. Nyx agreed, confident that if the factions attempted to attack Arcadia, they would face overwhelming power. They shifted the conversation to their plans for the semester examinations. Issei contemplated combining fire and dark magic or even using hypnosis magic, which made Nyx think back to how easily she had controlled Ingvild's mind. Issei questioned how she would utilize hypnosis magic, but Nyx found herself uncertain about her approach. As they walked to their next class, they encountered Aqua Arc, who had received a message from her mother regarding Issei's interest in technology. Aqua gently asked if they had a moment, and they nodded, following her to her office. Once settled, Aqua posed a question to Issei about joining the Academy of Technology. Both Issei and Nyx were surprised, realizing that their mothers must have discussed this with her. Issei expressed his desire to join, while Nyx declined. Aqua expressed concern for Issei, questioning how he would manage attending 2 academies simultaneously. Issei understood the pressure but insisted he could handle it, having already balanced training with Willow in his classes. Aqua acknowledged that others had managed dual academies in the past but remained skeptical. Issei's determination reminded her of her younger brother, John, and she decided not to dissuade him. Instead, she offered a small request. Her younger sister, Jade Arc, would assist him with his training for the upcoming examination. Issei hesitated, unsure if Jade would be willing to help someone she didn't know well. Aqua assured him that Jade had agreed and would contact him to arrange a class. Nyx encouraged Issei to accept the offer, highlighting the advantage of being trained by one of the smartest individuals. After some contemplation, Issei agreed to have Jade assist him, expressing enthusiasm for the opportunity. Aqua beamed at his response and informed him that they would be serving in the military for a year after graduation, as per Arcadia law. With that, Aqua dismissed them kindly, and the duo thanked her before leaving, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. Aqua ended the call with her mother and returned to correcting her students' assignment sheets, needing to check them thoroughly. In the dorms at 6:30 p.m., Issei and Nyx settled on the couch, engrossed in a television show. They were intrigued by the anime of this world, which differed from what they were familiar with on Earth. This world featured titles like Dragon Ball Z and its sequel, Dragon Ball Super. Issei turned to Nyx and suggested watching some anime together. Nyx considered her options before responding, reminding him that he should be focusing on his magic training. Issei shook his head, explaining that he would get to it later, as he still had a few months to learn everything. He admitted to feeling uncertain about whether he would achieve a breakthrough. Nyx, cupping his face gently, encouraged him to be patient. Creating an original spell took time, and despite not having a breakthrough yet, she believed he was doing well. Issei smiled, feeling motivated to work even harder. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and they exchanged curious glances. Issei walked to the door and opened it to find a tall woman with short dark yellow hair and green eyes standing there. She wore a black long-sleeve shirt layered with a red sleeveless top made of metal, complemented by a white corset and belts. Her outfit included brown gloves, a green cape, and a skirt, along with black pants and dark brown boots. Issei asked who she was, and the woman realized Aqua hadn't provided enough information about her. She introduced herself as Jade Arc, hoping Aqua had mentioned her. Issei recognized her, recalling his encounters with her sisters, including Olivia, who had given them a tour of the academies, and Bianca, whom he had met during a military event. He welcomed Jade and invited her inside, where she removed her boots at the door. Issei introduced her to Nyx, who greeted Jade with a smile, which Jade returned. Jade then asked Issei if he had a plan for preparing for the academy examination. After a moment of thought, Issei shared his idea of creating twin revolvers. Jade listened intently, prompting him to elaborate. He explained that he wanted to use bullets infused with his fire magic, capable of producing blasts as hot as the sun. Jade was taken aback, explaining the impossibility of using metals that could withstand such extreme heat. She detailed the temperatures involved, emphasizing that no known metal could endure the sun's core heat. Issei pondered alternatives, but Jade's impatience grew as he took too long to respond. After calming herself, Jade suggested that they could create a special metal from scratch with high heat resistance and good magical conductivity. Issei then proposed using a crystal to contain the blasts in a pocket dimension, which excited Jade. She acknowledged the idea but reminded him that they would need a metal to prevent damage to the weapon. Curious about the project's name, Jade asked Issei what he planned to call it. He suggested Project Honkai, and Jade nodded in approval. She inquired if he intended to expand the project in the future. Issei confirmed that if successful, he planned to create 12 more with different capabilities, though he hadn't yet thought about the designs. Jade agreed to help him but made it clear that the work would ultimately be his responsibility. She warned him that during the academy entrance exam, a panel of judges would evaluate his project. It would be 3 months from now. Issei was expected to work hard on his project, and while magic was allowed, there needed to be technological aspects as well. This was why Jade had asked him to develop his own metal. Issei nodded in agreement, acknowledging Jade's request. Jade smiled at him and then announced her departure, walking toward the door. She waved goodbye to Issei and Nyx, who both returned her farewell. Issei settled onto the couch beside Nyx, contemplating the design he would use for the revolvers. Nyx observed him, determined to support him in any way she could. In the DxD world, Underworld, at 8 p.m., Surzek stood outside Lilith, troubled by the absence of Issei, Nyx, and Hades. Their disappearance posed potential problems, particularly with Hades and Nyx, who had caused issues for the factions in the past. Hades had committed various offenses, including his involvement with the Cows Brigade and an attack on his sister's peerage using Samel. Surzex felt a sense of urgency, knowing that Hades could strike again. Nyx, on the other hand, had kidnapped the Leviathan descendant, Ingvild Leviathan. Her actions were met with disapproval in the underworld, but fortunately, Dai had rescued Ingvild, while Issei seemed more focused on claiming credit for the rescue. Surzex frowned at the thought of Issei's disgraceful behavior, feeling a mix of disdain and frustration. Although he considered Issei harmless, he couldn't shake his dislike for him. In truth, Surzex felt indifferent about Issei's disappearance and even found a sense of relief in it. Suddenly, a call came from Azazel. Surzex inquired about any updates. Azazel reported that it seemed as if they had been gone for a long time without leaving any trace behind. Surzex felt his frustration rising, a vein throbbing at his temple. He took a deep breath to regain his composure and asked about Issei's whereabouts. Azazel responded with a neutral tone, questioning why Surzex was concerned about Issei's absence. Surzex sighed, explaining that Dai was worried about his brother. Azazel acknowledged that Dai was a good brother, unlike Issei, who often sought the spotlight. They agreed that locating Issei was important, but their primary focus should be on Hades and Nyx. Surzex nodded, recalling that Zeus had approved of the relationship between Athena and Dai. This news brought a smile to his face as he anticipated their future marriage, though he noted that Dai's current relationships would be addressed first. As Azazel prepared to resume the search for the trio, Surzex gazed out at the city, his mood lifting with the prospect of a stronger alliance with the Greek faction. In Arcadia, Outlands, at 9:30 p.m., a dark and hellish place reserved for those who had harmed Arcadia, a grand mansion floated on a rock among several others. This was the base of Vlad Ark, a man who had once been prestigious but had fallen from grace. He was monitoring Issei and Nyx through spies in Arcadia, having developed an interest in them. Vlad was known for his sinister appearance, with a pale complexion, white eyes, and long white hair braided around his neck. He wore robes adorned with royal colors and gold ornaments, complemented by purple cloth and a bluish aureole cape. Once a member of the Ark family and the creator of the notorious Black Arms, Vlad's ambitions had led to a conflict that resulted in his exile. Despite his fall, he continued to plot against the Arks. His spies had informed him of Issei and Nyx, and he recognized Issei's potential for destruction. Vlad contemplated how to bring Issei to his side, whether through persuasion or force. He was determined to keep a close watch on Issei, intent on recruiting him one way or another. In a world where Issei felt unseen and unappreciated, memories of his past haunted him. He recalled moments when he was mocked by those around him, leaving him to question whether saving these people was worth it anymore. As he walked through Kuo, a deep sadness settled in his heart. His past had been marred by betrayal from his brother, and anger bubbled within him. He clenched his fists, feeling the weight of his family's image pressing down on him. In a moment of reflection, Issei trained alongside a white-haired woman who wielded a katana with grace. For the first time, he felt a genuine connection with someone, a bond that seemed to transcend the shadows of his past. The silhouettes of the big three loomed in his mind, reminders of the challenges he faced. He remembered a time when he sought training from Azazel, only to be met with indifference. His attempts to gain Graphia's guidance were met with rejection, and his persistence drew threats from those who wished to silence him. Despite the pain of those memories, he resolved to move forward. Issei shattered the chains of his past as he ran toward Arcadia, where he found a new family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia unfolded before him, filled with cities that sparked awe in his heart. He walked alongside Nyx, marveling at the beauty around them. Meanwhile, Persephone and Hades immersed themselves in their studies at their respective academies, striving to learn and grow. Issei formed friendships with the members of the original 15, alongside Nyx, as a shadowy figure lingered in the background, hinting at deeper mysteries. In a spirited clash, Issei faced off against a blonde-haired boy, both of them wearing confident smirks. Cheering them on were a blonde-haired woman and Nyx, their encouragement fueling the intensity of the match. As Issei gazed at Arcadia, he felt the warmth of love and care enveloping him, a stark contrast to the disdain he had experienced in his old world. He understood that a place that did not value him did not deserve him. In the midst of his journey, Issei grappled with fading memories of his past feelings for the girls he once cared for. Just as those emotions began to slip away, he encountered a version of Ingvild that was unlike the one he had known, leaving him to ponder the paths that lay ahead. The next day, in the dorms at 7 p.m., Issei was in his room, focused on his laptop as he worked on designing the revolver for Project Honkai. He had nearly completed the 3D model of the revolver. Dressed in a white shirt with the Arcadia label and striped shorts, he wore white socks that complemented his casual attire. Nyx entered the room, carrying a glass tray filled with snacks. She wore a red sleeveless shirt and white knee-length jeans, her hair tied back in a ponytail. They were both dressed in comfortable home clothing. She placed the snacks on the table along with a juice tray and looked at Issei, asking him about his choice of weapon. Issei turned his chair to face her, smiling as he explained his fascination with heroes who wielded revolvers. He reminisced about a favorite character from an anime he used to watch, a white-haired man with an eye patch who fought with a revolver. This memory brought him comfort during difficult times when he felt alone. Reflecting on his past, Issei recalled his desire for Azazel or Michael to help him create a revolver to protect his family. He recognized his naivety, believing that helping others would earn their recognition. Unfortunately, he had been disappointed by their selfishness and indifference. Nyx, noticing his sadness, gently reminded him not to dwell on the past. She encouraged him to remember why he came to Arcadia to start anew, away from those who wished to see him suffer. She pointed out that many in Arcadia already recognized his potential, and he had 3 mentors supporting him in achieving his dreams. She mentioned how his family was also progressing, with Macaria and Melano attending Strixhaven Academy, Hades at Magicalline Academy, and Persephone at the Academy of Carano. Ophis and Great Red were visiting regularly, helping him in any way they could. Issei felt a wave of emotion as Nyx spoke, and he turned away, grateful for her words. He expressed his appreciation, and Nyx smiled genuinely, her affection for him evident. She had longed for companionship, and in Issei, she found someone kind and understanding. As Nyx moved closer, her eyes fluttered shut, and her lips inched toward Issei's. He was momentarily entranced, unable to move. Just as they were about to share a kiss, the doorbell rang, jolting them back to reality. Issei quickly wiped his tears and called out to the visitor, announcing that he would be right there. He rushed to the bathroom to wash his face while Nyx cleared the table, sensing that it was likely Jade or Willow arriving for training. She sighed, realizing they had unintentionally interrupted a meaningful moment. Issei walked through the streets of Kuo, feeling the weight of his past, which had been shattered by his brother. Anger bubbled within him as he confronted the memories of his family. He trained alongside a white-haired woman, wielding a katana. For the first time, he felt a connection with someone, as the silhouettes of the big 3 loomed in the background. A memory surfaced of him asking Azazel for training, only to be ignored. He had sought Graphia's guidance, but she had turned him away. Despite his persistence, a threat of death had silenced him. Issei gritted his teeth, forcing those memories aside as he ran toward Arcadia, accompanied by his newfound family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia unfolded before him, and he walked alongside Nyx, both filled with wonder. Meanwhile, Persephone and Hades were seen studying diligently in their respective academies, deepening their knowledge. Issei forged friendships with the members of the original 15, alongside Nyx, while a shadowy figure lingered in the background. He clashed with a blonde-haired boy, both wearing smirks as a blonde-haired woman, and Nyx cheered them on. Issei gazed at Arcadia, a place where he felt loved and accepted, contrasting sharply with the disdain he had faced in his old world. He understood that a world that did not appreciate him did not deserve him. The next day at the Arcadia Training Center in Jupiter City, In stood ready in her samurai armor, prepared to face Issei. She wielded a katana in her left hand, exuding a calm aura that radiated tranquility. The early training session was due to a holiday at the academy, and announced that they would be learning her sword technique, Nitten Ichiryu, and revealed a smaller sword, a wakizashi, designed for close combat. Issei acknowledged the name of the style, though he was not well versed in it, and explained that Nitten Ichiryu was a sword style developed in the early days of Arcadian samurai. She intended to teach him 10 specific sword techniques, urging him to learn them proficiently. She handed him a book she had written, titled The Book of 10 Rings, and instructed him to read it whenever possible. As the training commenced, and took her stance, and Issei summoned Excalibur. He charged at her, but she effortlessly blocked his strike. Despite his speed, and pushed him back with her strength, forcing him to jump back to avoid a follow-up slash. And countered with her own strike, utilizing her wakizashi. She parried Issei's attacks with ease, launching counterattacks that kept him on the defensive. Issei realized he needed to tap into more strength to overcome her. He called upon Drake to boost his strength and speed, focusing it on his hands, and sensed the sudden surge in his power and found herself being pushed back. She smirked, realizing she had underestimated him. He was no novice, having trained relentlessly under Willow. As she backflipped to evade another slash, Issei prepared himself. He sensed that he needed to defend against her impending attack, and, aware of her own strength, was cautious not to harm him, especially as Willow's student. Issei instructed Drake to concentrate on defense, knowing he would need all his strength to withstand Anne's assault. She charged at him, unleashing a flurry of strikes. Issei managed to block some, but not all, of her rapid attacks. After the onslaught, and took a moment to recover, adopting the Void Strike stance, a technique known for its speed and power but also for leaving openings. Issei staggered to his knees, breathing heavily. Had he not focused entirely on defense, he would have been defeated. And smiled, impressed that he had survived her strikes. He quickly used healing magic to recover, and she acknowledged his skill, noting that few could withstand her attacks with such resilience. Issei nodded, determined to elevate his abilities, as he had not used his balance breaker in some time. Drake announced the activation of the balance breaker, the Welsh dragon's ultimate form. Issei transformed, a powerful aura radiating from him and sweeping across the battlefield, and noticed the significant increase in Issei's power and smiled, anticipating a more challenging fight ahead. She took her stance, preparing herself for the confrontation with Issei, eager to see what he would bring to the battle. Issei was pushed forward by the big three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and his family watched in happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas smirked as he observed several men armed with weapons, targeting the Arc family. His desire to rule was evident, and Juniper's expression turned to one of horror and despair. Issei helped Juniper, encouraging her during this tough time. He also offered hope to the Arc family, understanding their sadness and despair. Together with his family, Issei prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as memories of Dai flooded back. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, they were swiftly dealt with, while Great Red and Ophis took down many more of Nicholas's forces. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, which only fueled Nicholas's anger as he fought against two members of the Arc family. Issei was horrified to see Juniper share the same expression upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings battled against the traitors of the Arc clan, while a red-haired woman wore a sinister look on her face. The big three, along with Issei, fought against the remaining forces of Nicholas. As Juniper clashed with Nicholas, Issei assisted her, both of them smiling as they brought the fight to an end. Issei shook his head, shocking the Arc Council, who had hoped for him to become emperor. Even Juniper was stunned by his response. Issei and Juniper, along with their families, watched the horizon of Arcadia. Now that things were improving, smiles on their faces. Issei and Juniper exchanged loving smiles as a wedding hall came into view. The scene shifted to Issei, now with a different appearance, standing proudly with the Arc family behind him. Issei charged at Anne, who had adopted her fire stance to attack. She skillfully avoided his initial slash but decided to escalate the fight. and was quick and evasive, and although Issei managed to block some of her blows, he could not defend against them all. The electricity from Anne's lightning stance coursed through Issei, nearly causing him to lose his balance, but he steadied himself and resumed his stance, twirling Excalibur with determination, and noted with a smile that Issei's balance breaker seemed to enhance his durability. She blocked another of his slashes and, using her strength, pushed his sword to the ground, leaving Issei momentarily stunned. He recognized Anne as one of the strongest duelists, capable of matching the might of others like Willow. This made Issei wonder how powerful Juniper could be, considering the strength of these formidable opponents. As Anne pressed down on Issei's sword, he struggled to lift it, even in his balance breaker state. She decided to end the match by switching to her steel stance, preparing to strike him down. However, Issei's strength began to increase, catching Anne off guard. He jumped back, creating distance between them, and Anne recognized his growth as a fighter. Once again, Issei charged at Anne with blinding speed, surprising her with his capabilities. She blocked his strike, her expression turning serious as she prepared to unleash more of her strength. Kicking Issei back, she began to channel even more magic, her blades glowing brightly as she entered her light stance. With a single word, she beckoned him to come at her. Issei twirled his blade and dashed forward, slashing upward, which Anne blocked with her wakizashi. He followed up with a side slash, only to have it deflected by her other blade. Anne noticed Issei's next strike and blocked it with both swords, but he quickly adapted, ducking to avoid her counterattack and blocking another strike aimed at him. Issei's strength continued to grow at an impressive rate, which did not go unnoticed by Anne. She executed an X slash, which Issei narrowly avoided, the force of her strike creating a dent in the nearby wall and momentarily causing him to flinch at her power. Anne positioned one blade in front of her and dashed toward Issei. Issei jumped back and twirled his blade, evading a series of strikes from Anne. He then followed up with a powerful upper slash, which Anne blocked with both her katana and wakizashi. Issei smiled, pleased to receive recognition from one of the big three. Just as the fight was about to continue, a voice called from the side, prompting both fighters to return to their original positions. They turned to see Juniper Arc, the Empress, accompanied by two others. Issei and Anne recognized John, but only Anne knew the other figure, Rosemary Arc, the youngest of the Arc siblings. Rosemary was a young woman with long dark yellow hair and green eyes. She wore a long-sleeve polo and a black sleeveless top with yellow lining, complemented by a blue and white skirt and black leggings. A ribbon adorned her neck, and she wore golden brown boots. Juniper greeted Anne warmly, acknowledging the time since they last met. She then praised Issei for his improvement, noting that he could keep up with Anne, and nodded in agreement, highlighting Issei's strength and adaptability. She mentioned that if she had used her full abilities, the fight would have ended swiftly. Issei felt a shiver at the thought, realizing Anne was as formidable as Willow. Juniper encouraged Issei, reminding him that his ability to keep pace with Anne was commendable even among the elite of the clan in the kingdom of Kugane. Issei felt proud of his growth since arriving in Arcadia, as his sword skills had reached impressive levels, and his magical abilities had expanded significantly. Juniper then introduced Rosemary to Issei, who greeted her with a smile. Rosemary nervously introduced herself, bowing slightly. Issei returned the gesture and encouraged her to call him by his name. She smiled back, asking if she could meet Drake, the dragon within his boosted gear. When Issei summoned Drake, the dragon awoke with a serious tone, questioning who had disturbed his slumber. Upon recognizing Issei, Drake shifted his demeanor, and the group chuckled at his antics. Rosemary, though nervous, introduced herself to Drake, who praised her respectful nature. Drake introduced himself as the Welsh Dragon and the Red Dragon Emperor, and Rosemary expressed her gratitude. She inquired about the truth of Drake's flames, which could burn the souls of enemies. Drake confirmed this, explaining that his flames were powerful but had limitations, particularly regarding his former rival and certain dragon gods. Understanding the gravity of Drake's words, Rosemary felt reassured by the trustworthiness of Issei. After a brief exchange, Drake yawned, indicating he preferred not to be disturbed unless necessary. Issei felt embarrassed by Draig's behavior and apologized to the group. Juniper reassured him that she understood, and then asked if he could show them the new alloy he had created. Issei nodded, smiling at the opportunity to share his work. As Issei opened a dimensional portal, he removed a piece of psyllium and handed it to Juniper. She examined the alloy, surprised by its craftsmanship. John expressed his astonishment, asking if Issei had made it himself. Issei confirmed that, with Jade's guidance, he had succeeded after many attempts, despite some setbacks. Once he found the right combination of elements, he created a stable alloy. Juniper noted that this alone could significantly increase his chances of gaining admission to the academy, but she suspected he wasn't finished yet. Issei nodded, revealing his intention to create a revolver with the psyllium, promising to showcase it during the examination. Juniper expressed her eagerness to see its capabilities. After returning the psyllium to Issei, Juniper informed her children, John and Rosemary, that she had work to attend to and invited them to join her. They agreed, and she bid farewell to Issei and before teleporting back to her castle, leaving them behind. Issei reminded and to read the book he had given her whenever she had the chance. They both left the training room, reflecting on the progress Issei had made and wondering about the future. In their dorms later that day, Issei and Nyx were visited by Persephone, who was curious about Issei's recent work. She greeted him cheerfully and asked if he had indeed created a new alloy. Issei confirmed this and mentioned his plans to use it for a revolver, admitting he had yet to name it. Persephone examined the psyllium on the table, recalling her earlier request for a piece. She was eager to learn more about its potential. Issei explained the challenges he faced in perfecting the alloy, but now that he understood the correct composition, he was confident he could produce enough for the revolver. Persephone's excitement grew as she inquired about when they could see the revolver in action. Issei estimated it would be ready by the next day and asked about her siblings, Macaria, Melano, and Hades. Persephone sighed, mentioning Hades' newfound interest in military education and how some girls had developed crushes on him. She expressed her frustration, wishing to be there to assert their marriage and protect him from unwanted attention. After taking a deep breath, Persephone smiled and said she would inform Hades about the weapon's readiness. She then excused herself, needing to complete her homework for her professors. Issei placed the psyllium in his pocket, feeling excitement for the next day's work on the revolver. Nyx then asked Issei about his plans after graduation. He explained that, according to the Empress's decree, he would serve in the military for a year before choosing a career path. He expressed his desire to join the military permanently and become a mage to help Arcadia, feeling a sense of duty to repay them. Nyx expressed her wish to follow him, not minding being part of his legion. Issei felt grateful for her support and made a silent vow to protect her, just as he would for anyone else. They decided to have dinner and then head to bed, knowing they had a big day ahead. A few weeks later, in Jade's laboratory, the day of the examination arrived. Candidates were to present their creations to a panel of judges, with a significantly higher acceptance rate than the Magic Academy. The Empress of Arcadia was particularly interested in Issei's invention of psyllium and the revolver he would demonstrate. As Issei worked on finalizing the gun, he tested it in Jade's laboratory to ensure there were no defects. He wanted to avoid any malfunctions during the trial and checked the weapon's compatibility with his fighting style. Jade entered the room, reminding him of the importance of ensuring his creation was flawless, as weeks of experimentation would be wasted otherwise. The gun appeared to be in good condition, and Jade felt confident there wouldn't be any issues. She shook her head as she spoke, recalling her past experiences. Issei looked at her and nodded, remembering the first lesson she had taught him. He recalled her words about always expecting the unexpected, especially when it came to technology that could malfunction at any moment. Jade nodded in agreement, knowing all too well the consequences of her own past projects that had gone awry. She certainly didn't want to relive those moments. Jade continued, expressing her concern about the effort Issei had put into his work. It would be painful to see something he had labored over destroyed. Issei understood, as he had done most of the work on the project, with Jade guiding him along the way. She then prompted him to recall the second rule she had shared. Issei responded, reminding her that no technology or algorithm is perfect, and flaws could lead to damage. Jade's expression brightened into a genuine smile, pleased that he remembered everything she had taught him. As she walked toward the door, she spoke again, letting him know that he could reach out whenever he wanted to continue with Project Honkai. She would be more than happy to assist him or collaborate again. With a warm smile, she wished him all the best as she prepared to leave. A loading screen appears, progressing from 0% to 100%. Issei gazes in awe at the Arcadian capital, witnessing the academies in action. The Arc siblings display their impressive fighting skills, while Issei demonstrates his abilities, assisting the original 15 in their mission. Scenes from Issei's past flash before him, where he recalls the mocking laughter of others. He contemplates whether it is worth saving these people any longer. Another loading screen transitions from 0% to 100%. Issei stands in wonder at the Arcadian capital, observing the fierce battles of the academies. The Arc siblings continue to showcase their prowess, and Issei aids the original 15 with his own skills. Memories of Issei's past resurface, filled with ridicule. He questions the value of his efforts to save those who once scorned him. As he walks through Kuo, Issei feels the weight of his sorrow, haunted by the memories of his brother's betrayal. Anger wells up inside him, and he strikes an image of his family. In a moment of training, Issei practices alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana. For the first time, he feels a genuine connection with someone, as silhouettes of the big three hover in the background. A memory surfaces of Issei asking Azazel for training, only to be ignored. He recalls his persistence in seeking Graphia's guidance, which ended in rejection and threats. Determined, Issei pushes through his painful memories, running towards Arcadia with his newfound family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia unfold before him, and he walks alongside Nyx, both filled with wonder. The scene shifts to Persephone and Hades, who are diligently studying in their respective academies. Issei forms friendships with the members of the original 15 and Nyx, while a shadowy silhouette lingers nearby. In a spirited clash, Issei faces off against a blonde-haired boy, both wearing confident smirks. A blonde-haired woman and Nyx cheer them on, fueling their competitive spirits. Issei reflects on Arcadia, a place where he is cherished, contrasting it with the disdain he faced in his former world. He realizes that a world that does not value him does not deserve him. As he grapples with his past feelings for the girls, they begin to fade from his memory. He soon encounters a different version of Ingvild, one that is unlike the Ingvild he once knew. Issei was pushed forward by the big three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and his family watched in happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he observed several men armed with weapons, targeting the Arc family. His desire for power was evident, and Juniper's expression shifted to one of horror and despair. Issei stepped in to help Juniper, encouraging her during this difficult time. He also offered hope to the Arc family, understanding their sadness and despair. Together with his family, Issei prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as memories of Dai flooded back. Facing off against several members of the Black Arms, Issei fought fiercely, while Great Red and Ophis unleashed their power, taking down many of Nicholas's forces. Issei firmly rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, which only fueled the man's anger as he clashed with two members of the Arc family. He watched in dismay as Juniper mirrored his horror upon hearing Nicholas's true intentions. The Arc siblings battled against the traitors of their clan, while a red-haired woman observed with a sinister smile. The big three, alongside Issei, fought valiantly against the remnants of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper and Nicholas clashed, Issei assisted her, both of them smiling as they brought the fight to an end. Issei shook his head, shocking the Arc Council, who had hoped he would become their emperor. Even Juniper was taken aback by his response. Together, Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, now filled with hope and smiles as their situation improved. With loving smiles, Issei and Juniper envisioned their future as a wedding hall came into view. The scene shifted to Issei, now with a different appearance, standing confidently with the Arc family behind him. At the Academy of Technology, Issei stood ready for the test ahead. He held the judgment of Shamash in his hands, looking at the impressive structure of the academy, which towered like a skyscraper, featuring 2 pillar buildings and a central glass structure. The entrance boasted a dome-shaped design with glass doors leading to a lower level. Nearby, several centers housed laboratories for Arcadian institutions. As Issei prepared to enter the examination hall, he spotted Nyx approaching. She greeted him cheerfully and he smiled back, surprised to see her. Curious, Issei asked about her classes, noting her absence. Nyx explained that it was break time, and she had come to the academy because she felt isolated at school. Issei encouraged her to make friends, reminding her that the people of Arcadia were different from those in their old world. He acknowledged that while many sought his friendship for his reputation, they still had the opportunity to form genuine connections. Nyx considered his words, contemplating whom she might befriend. She urged Issei to head inside as the examination was about to begin. They entered the hall, which was bustling with students. Some recognized Issei and began to whisper among themselves. One female student remarked on Issei's impressive achievement, while another noted Nyx's beauty and magical prowess. They speculated on why the two were present, concluding that they were there for the examination, just like everyone else. Nyx enjoyed the attention, recalling her days as the primordial goddess of darkness and night, when she had numerous followers. As time passed and civilizations changed, she had become forgotten and lonely. Now, receiving admiration felt refreshing. Issei, on the other hand, was not particularly fond of the attention but was beginning to appreciate the warmth that came with it. Nyx turned to him, asking how it felt to be loved instead of hated. He replied that it felt good. As they approached the registration desk, the receptionist greeted them. Issei introduced himself and stated his purpose for attending the academy's examination. Issei Hyoudou had registered alongside Miss Jade Arc a few days prior. The receptionist nodded as she searched her files and eventually found his name. She informed him that his examination would be in 15 minutes and instructed him to head to room 7 when his turn was called. Issei nodded and settled down in a nearby seat with Nyx, who looked at him and asked if he was nervous. Issei shook his head, expressing his surprise at the lack of aptitude tests or interviews, which were common in most colleges and workplaces. He noted that the kingdom felt like a utopia, imperfect but significantly better than what Earth had to offer. Nyx agreed, commenting on the happiness of the people and the laws that ensured equality among the faunus. She expressed her growing fondness for this new world. Issei wondered what would happen if factions from their past discovered this place. Nyx dismissed the thought, stating that she considered Arcadia her home and warned that any attack would lead to dire consequences for those involved. As they conversed, a figure approached them. It was a Grimm, adorned in medieval armor and holding a sword, with glowing white eyes and a crown atop his head. Nyx was intrigued by his presence, having never considered befriending anyone before. Issei recognized the Grimm but had never interacted with one directly. The Grimm introduced himself as Invictus and expressed his desire to meet them. He had heard of Issei and Nyx and wanted to ask if they could be friends. Both Issei and Nyx were taken aback. They had never had anyone approach them for friendship before. Issei hesitated, recalling past betrayals, but sensed that Invictus was different. Invictus explained that Grimm had the ability to sense malice and negative emotions. He noted that while Issei had a bit of aggression, he felt no malice from him, which surprised Issei. Invictus had expected pride and arrogance but found kindness instead. Issei felt a wave of gratitude wash over him, as such words were rare for him to hear. When Issei questioned Invictus's desire for friendship, Invictus reassured him that he valued a few close friends over a large circle. Issei agreed, realizing he didn't need the same kind of social life as others. He extended his hand, and Invictus accepted it, noting how cold his grip was, which made Issei smile. Invictus then turned to Nyx, offering her friendship as well, to which she responded enthusiastically. Just then, the receptionist called for Issei and Invictus to head to their respective rooms for the exam. Issei learned that Invictus was also there for the same purpose. They exchanged well wishes as they made their way to their rooms. Upon entering, Issei saw 3 panelists waiting for him. One of them recognized him as the student who had earned orichalcum at the Magic Academy. Issei nodded, confirming his identity. A young man was advised not to view the panel's concerns as discouragement from his dreams. They questioned whether he could manage the stress of attending 2 academies simultaneously, wanting to ensure he was prepared for the challenges ahead. Issei nodded in agreement, expressing his confidence in handling stressful situations and readiness for whatever lay ahead in the academy. The panelist then instructed Issei to present the technology he had developed, emphasizing the importance of explaining its workings, as his performance would be graded on both the technology's use and his explanation. Issei understood this well, having been briefed by Jade on what was required for his presentation. He revealed 2 revolvers, the judgment of Shamash, and explained their capabilities. He described them as his personal creation, capable of generating blasts as hot as the sun. The panelists listened with awe, one of them requesting a demonstration. Issei took aim at a block of purple metal that was placed before him and fired. The metal began to ignite and was soon reduced to a molten state, ultimately vanishing completely. Just as Issei prepared to use water magic to cool the remnants, one of the panelists intervened, suggesting they handle the flames and energy instead. With 2 hoses emitting icy blasts, the panelists successfully froze the flames and energy. They then inquired about the process behind Issei's creation. He explained that the gun was made from sullium, an alloy he had developed himself, which incorporated various metals and non-metals. It was a self-repairing nanomachine that could correct itself when damaged. The crystal within the gun harnessed magic to produce blasts of flame, allowing Issei to fire projectiles as hot as the sun. The panelists were thrilled with Issei's innovative discovery, though he felt a pang of sadness for not being able to mention Jade, who had mentored him in creating the gun. She had advised him to keep her involvement a secret, as some panelists might frown upon collaboration, expecting only basic projects rather than a powerful weapon. The panelists congratulated Issei, expressing that he had exceeded their expectations and would be a perfect fit for the academy. They cautioned him to keep the recipe for the alloy a secret, as it was one of the most powerful materials ever seen in Arcadia. They warned him that in the wrong hands, it could lead to dangerous consequences, especially from factions that opposed him. Issei acknowledged their words and left the room, ready for the next phase of his journey. 2 hours later, Issei, Nyx, and Invictus sat together, eagerly awaiting their letters of admission. Both Issei and Invictus had been accepted into the academy, and they were excited to receive their official letters. When their names were called, they approached the receptionist, who confirmed their acceptance and wished them luck, instructing them to open their envelopes at home. As they parted ways, Invictus remarked that they would meet again soon. Issei shared his letter with Nyx, who was equally thrilled. She suggested they tell Jade, knowing she would be delighted by the news. However, a familiar voice interrupted them. It was Jade Arc, accompanied by Ren, and congratulated Issei on his acceptance and expressed confidence in his ability to handle the stress of the academy, just as he had managed her training. Issei felt a genuine smile spread across his face, while Nyx looked on with happiness, recalling her previous encounters with Jade praised Issei for surpassing expectations, having invented a new alloy and a revolver capable of generating sun-like blasts. Grateful for their support, Issei thanked them, and Nyx proposed a celebration for his admission, and suggested they go out to eat at a fancy restaurant, to which Jade agreed. Issei decided to call Hades and his family to join the celebration, though he hesitated about inviting Invictus since they were still getting to know each other. Meanwhile, at Arc Royal Castle, Juniper watched a video of the revolver with keen interest. She was pleased to see Issei's success, noting that he had achieved it with remarkable skill. Juniper felt a wave of happiness as she reflected on Issei's success, which also meant Jade's success. She understood the importance of keeping Issei's sullium out of enemy hands, particularly from a certain arc that had caused her family significant trouble. She was aware that news of Issei's achievements would soon spread throughout Arcadia, and she shared the concerns of the panelists about the potential misuse of sullium. If enemies were to create weapons from it, the consequences could be catastrophic. While she was pleased for Issei, She worried that someone might exploit him. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on her door. It was Julius, and he asked if she was free. Juniper welcomed him in with a smile, noting his worried expression. He had seen the video of Issei and wanted to discuss it. Juniper quickly reassured him that she understood the boy's potential, recognizing him as one of the most powerful individuals Arcadia had ever encountered. Julius nodded, sharing her concern for Issei's safety. He mentioned that the council had a plan regarding Issei, but Juniper interrupted, hoping it wasn't what she feared. Julius clarified that they did not intend to harm or imprison Issei or his family. The council simply wanted to have a private conversation with him, and he assured her that he and Liam would be present. If necessary, they could also include John or Juniper, as they were trusted by. Their priority was to ensure his safety. Juniper sighed, realizing the necessity of the situation. With Issei's invention now public, the risk of enemies targeting him or his family was high. She reluctantly agreed to the plan, understanding the urgency of the matter. Julius expressed his relief, promising that nothing would happen to Issei before he left her room. In the Outlands, others were also watching Issei. The Arcs feared that their enemies were aware of him and were interested in his abilities. Vlad spoke with a sinister grin, acknowledging Issei's unique capabilities. Nicholas shared his thoughts on the boy's potential, envisioning the power they could harness from him: strength that could multiply, flames that could consume souls, and exceptional intelligence paired with powerful magic. Vlad insisted on observing Issei further before making any moves, wanting to determine if he would be a suitable leader for their forces. Nicholas reluctantly agreed, though he believed waiting was a mistake. They discussed Issei's origins, with Vlad expressing surprise at the distance of his home from Arcadia. Nicholas speculated that Issei's arrival might have been a slide of luck, as there was no apparent means of transport connecting the two worlds. He vowed to continue investigating Issei's background and the Earth he came from, hoping to find something that could be used against the Arcs. Vlad seemed to approve of Nicholas's plan, recognizing the potential advantages that knowledge of Issei's Earth could provide in their efforts against the Arcs. A few days later, at the Academy of Technology, it was 12:30 a.m. Issei and Invictus had just finished their class, as the teacher had left some time ago. The duo exited the classroom and walked toward the gate, heading to the cafeteria. Issei turned to Invictus and inquired about the Grimm. Invictus nodded and explained that eons ago, they had been mindless beasts under the command of the god of darkness. However, the ancient Grimm had decided to flee and found refuge in Arcadia, where they established a settlement. Over time, the Grimm evolved from mindless creatures into sentient beings, similar to humans. The four founders discovered them, and although their initial encounter was hostile, they eventually formed an alliance, integrating the Grimm into the kingdom of Arcadia. Issei listened intently, but Invictus's tone shifted to one of sadness as he continued. He noted that the Grimm in the Four Kingdoms remained primitive and were often seen as monsters. Despite their weakness, Invictus wore armor to present a physical appearance, while his true form was that of a spirit of darkness. Issei recalled the moment Invictus had revealed his true self to him and Nyx, realizing that while it might frighten outsiders, both he and Nyx were unfazed. Curious, Issei asked why the people of Arcadia harbored such animosity toward the Four Kingdoms. He remembered that Anne and her family were among the few who originated from the Four Kingdoms, including a certain Rose he had met during his time in the city with Nyx and Invictus. Invictus explained that the hatred stemmed from several factors, including rampant corruption in the Four Kingdoms and the huntsmen and huntresses, who often acted more like mercenaries than heroes. He also mentioned the White Fang, which surprised Issei. He had heard of the organization but had only been told that they were animals and not faunus, with no further information provided. All he knew was that they were considered a terrorist group. Invictus elaborated that the White Fang had initially been a faunus group seeking equality but had become militant over time. Their desire for revenge had transformed them into a terrorist organization, targeting even those who peacefully coexisted. The Arcadian faunus held a particularly strong disdain for them. Issei began to understand the depth of the animosity toward the Four Kingdoms and nodded in agreement with Invictus. He realized that even the Grim Kingdom did not favor the Four Kingdoms, but there was someone they despised even more: the false goddess, Salem. Intrigued, Issei asked Invictus how Arcadia had come into existence. Invictus confirmed that it was created by the four founders Anastasia, Apricity, Aurelia, and Aurora Arc, who were responsible for the kingdom's existence. As they made their way to the cafeteria, someone suddenly teleported in front of them. The duo recognized the Empress, Juniper. She greeted them, and they both bowed respectfully. Juniper sighed and reminded Issei that he need not bow before her. Turning to Invictus, she acknowledged him, expressing her pleasure at meeting him in person. Invictus responded respectfully, and Juniper then looked at Issei, asking if they had a moment to talk. Both Issei and Invictus were taken aback, wondering what the Empress wanted. Juniper's expression turned serious as she informed them that the Elder Arcs wished to speak with Issei. Shocked, they realized they had no choice but to meet with the Elder Arcs, unsure of what to expect from such an important audience. Issei walked through the streets of Kuo, weighed down by the sadness of his past, which had been shattered by his brother. Anger surged within him as he struck a picture of his family. He had once felt blind to the truth, feeling isolated and lost, but now he was determined to see clearly. Training alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana, Issei experienced a connection he had never known before. A silhouette of the Big Three appeared, with Invictus, Nyx, and Ophis standing beside him. Memories flooded back of his attempts to seek training from Azazel, only to be ignored. He had also sought Graphia's guidance, but she had turned him away, and he had faced threats for his persistence. Shaking off the painful memories, Issei ran towards Arcadia, accompanied by his newfound family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia unfolded before him, and he and Nyx marveled at the sights. The scene shifted to Persephone and Hades, who were diligently studying in their respective academies, deepening their knowledge. Issei shared a friendship with the members of the original 15, alongside Nyx and Invictus, while a shadowy figure loomed in the background. In the DxD world, at the Hyoudou residence, a brown-haired boy named Hyoudou moved anxiously, worry etched on his face. He donned the Crescent Moon Gauntlets, a sacred gear that housed the soul of Krumkruch, the Crescent Circle Dragon, the strongest of evil dragons. Dai was determined to find a way to defeat their enemies, even in the absence of his older brother. Krom, in a mocking tone, pointed out Dai's lack of true accomplishments, noting that everything he had achieved was built on Issei's efforts. Dai felt frustration rise within him, as the Chaos Brigade had returned, now as the Neo-Chaos Brigade, wreaking havoc across the factions. The factions believed in Dai's potential to solve their problems, but without Issei, he felt the weight of the challenge grow heavier. Dai insisted that the factions would eventually bring Issei back, convinced that his brother would return to help him. Krom, however, expressed his disdain for Dai's arrogance and lack of initiative, predicting that Dai's empire would eventually crumble. As Dai sat on the couch, frustration boiling within him, a knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Aika Hyoudou entered, her waist-length orange-brown hair tied back, with reddish-brown eyes that held a mix of concern and determination. She greeted her brother and inquired about Issei's whereabouts. Dai shook his head, feigning sadness as he relayed Azazel's report of no trace of Issei, Nyx, or Hades. Aika frowned, expressing her disbelief at Issei's selfishness in abandoning them. Dai sighed, acknowledging the need to locate Issei, even as Aika's anger simmered beneath the surface. Despite the faction's indifference, it was clear that Dai still cared for his brother, even if he had been disowned. Aika nodded with a smile, acknowledging the need to change as they prepared to meet Athena for the engagement. Dai felt a slight blush creeping onto his cheeks, and Aika playfully remarked on his curiosity about meeting his new bride. After sharing a light-hearted moment, she bid him farewell and left. Dai's expression shifted to one of mischief, while Krom looked on with a frown, disapproving of Dai's behavior. Issei was pushed forward by the Big Three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and his family watched in happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he observed several men armed with weapons, targeting the Arc family. his desire to rule was evident, and Juniper's expression turned to one of horror and despair. Issei stepped in to help Juniper, encouraging her during this tough time. He also offered hope to the Arc family, understanding their sadness and despair. Together with his family, Issei prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as he remembered Dai. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, the battle intensified. Great Red and Ophis joined the fray, taking down many of the Black Arms. Invictus, Nyx, Hades, and their families also entered the fight. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, which only fueled Nicholas's anger. He fought against two members of the Arc family, witnessing Juniper's horror as she learned of Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings battled against the traitors of the Arc clan, while a red-haired woman observed with a sinister look. The Big Three and Issei fought against the last of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper clashed with Nicholas, Issei assisted her, both of them smiling as they approached the end of the fight. Issei shook his head, surprising the Arc Council, who had hoped he would become the emperor. Even Juniper was stunned by his response. Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, now filled with hope and smiles as things began to improve. Their loving expressions were evident as a wedding hall appeared in the scene. The image shifted to show Issei with a different appearance, standing confidently with the Arc family behind him. Several weeks later, in Jade's laboratory at 1:30 p.m., Issei was hard at work on a special purple crystal. This crystal was not ordinary. It was designed for a unique purpose. Issei had returned to the laboratory to continue with Project Honkai, determined to create something new. He contacted Jade, who was eager to assist him. This time, he aimed to manipulate gravity effortlessly. Jade suggested that he first learn gravity magic, and Aqua was more than willing to teach him. Issei mastered the basics within a few days, impressing Aqua, who was thrilled to have such a talented student. He focused on creating a device that would allow him to manipulate gravity effectively. The crystal was completed using the same material as the sun crystal, but it was more advanced and capable. Issei worked tirelessly, knowing that gravity magic could be unstable, requiring extra effort to perfect the crystal. Jade and Aqua supported him wherever possible, but Issei was the one who developed the cane needed to contain the crystal. The cane featured a specialized top to hold the crystal securely, adorned with a black covering and a silvery tip. The staff was crafted from psyllium, with a decorative black obsidian covering. With a proud smile, Issei admired his second creation, aware that its full potential remained unknown. He had also designed a container for the crystal, which was perfectly fitted. He called out to Jade and Aqua, who soon arrived to see the staff. They were taken aback by its design, and Aqua asked if it had access to gravity magic. Issei nodded, explaining that while it had potential, the core of the staff still needed work. Aqua examined the staff and sensed the magic emanating from the crystal, noticing several flaws. She cautioned that the crystal might become unstable and could potentially explode. She acknowledged Issei's grasp of the magic circle but expressed concern about incorporating it into technology, as gravity magic was one of the most complex forms of magic to master. Issei understood the challenges ahead. Jade suggested using adamantine to control the instability of the gravity magic, and Issei agreed. He carefully removed the top part of the staff and applied adamantine to the gem, taking his time to ensure it looked the same. He noticed the gem glowing more brightly. Aqua examined it again and saw the magic settling down effectively. She encouraged Issei to give it a try. As Issei looked at the staff, he noticed the glow intensifying, feeling confident that adamantine would stabilize it. With a smile, he prepared to test his creation. Jade suggested they head to the training room, and Issei nodded in agreement as the trio made their way there. Aqua, with a playful smirk, picked up a nearby paper and quickly wrote something down. She soon attached it to Jade's back without either her or Issei noticing. They made their way to the training room where, instead of a material cube, several turrets charged with elemental magic awaited them. As always, Jade headed to the control room. Aqua was in the observation room, watching Issei, who had worked on the staff for days. Now they would see the results. Jade instructed Issei, reminding him of what he needed to do. Issei nodded in response. Jade continued to explain the task, stating that this time, he would face several turrets firing various magic spells, including ice, fire, electricity, and water. His goal was to use the staff to create high magic gravity spells to defend himself from the incoming attacks. With a thumbs up to Jade, who smiled back, she adopted a serious tone. She initiated the countdown, and as she reached now, she pressed a button. The turrets aimed at Issei and unleashed a barrage of colorful energy beams, each representing different elemental magic. As the spells approached, Issei twirled his staff and conjured a small orb of magic. Jade watched with concern, ready to intervene if necessary. Although she believed Issei would be fine, worry creased her brow. Aqua shared a similar expression, prepared to teleport in case her student needed rescuing. She had already set up a teleportation circle, unaware that the attack would have no effect on Issei. What unfolded next was astonishing. The black orb of magic soared into the air, transforming into a highly concentrated gravity magic orb. Aqua recognized it immediately and dispelled her teleportation circle, confident that Issei was in control. The magic attacks were drawn toward the black orb, which had morphed into a black hole, consuming the spells and even causing some damage to the room. Issei slammed his staff to the ground, obliterating the black hole. The black hole collapsed, drawing in the air before releasing a powerful gust toward Issei and the turrets, causing him to stagger slightly. Aqua called out in concern, but Issei raised a hand to reassure her that he was unharmed. Meanwhile, Jade focused on stabilizing the field, astonished by the gravity magic's potency, which was strong enough to create black holes. They all knew it wasn't the staff's full potential. As the chaos subsided and the air returned to normal, the turrets lay partially damaged. Jade and Aqua rushed to the testing room, where Jade asked if Issei was all right. He nodded, still in awe of the staff's power. Jade expressed her surprise at its ability to generate black holes, recognizing it as one of the most powerful weapons he had created. Issei agreed, reflecting on how the Star of Eden had exceeded his expectations, initially intended only for gravity manipulation. Aqua added that gravity magic was complex but could be incredibly powerful if used correctly. Black holes were just one aspect of what the staff could achieve. Drake chimed in, noting that it felt like wielding magic on par with the gods, capable of reducing spells to nothingness. The trio shivered at the thought of the Star of Eden's true power, and even Jade remained silent about the name Issei had given it, acknowledging the staff's immense potential. They decided to inform the Empress about the creation, recognizing its power and the danger it posed if it fell into the wrong hands. Aqua emphasized that only Issei should wield the Star of Eden, as its misuse could lead to catastrophic destruction in Arcadia. Issei reluctantly agreed, aware of the staff's unknown full potential. He then noticed something stuck to Jade's back. He pointed it out and Jade turned to him, curious. When she saw what was written on the paper, her face turned beet red. It read, "Jade is nothing but a brocon," signed by Aqua. Jade angrily tore the sheet, startling Issei, who was puzzled by her reaction. She looked around, realizing Aqua had vanished, leaving no trace behind. In a fit of fury, Jade yelled Aqua's name at the top of her lungs, while Issei understood that the note must have contained something embarrassing. He decided to steer clear of the topic. Later, at the Arcadian Training Center, Juniper was present with him during the training session alongside Jade, Aqua, and Issei. Aqua had a small mark on her forehead from Jade's earlier smack, a result of their conversation with their mother about the situation. The Empress listened intently as Issei, Jade, and Aqua explained the Star of Eden's capabilities. Juniper and N were wide-eyed, aware of the implications of gravity magic that could generate black holes. They understood that such power was meant for highly experienced mages, not someone who had only recently learned the magic. Black holes represented the highest level of gravity magic, capable of consuming everything in their vicinity. The use of such magic was forbidden, especially near the city gates, for good reason. Issei took responsibility for the experiments, apologizing for the unexpected power of the Star of Eden. He had only intended to manipulate gravity, but his magical abilities had led to unforeseen results. Juniper reassured him, stating that no one had been harmed during the experimentation and creation of the staff. At this point, Juniper recognized Issei's intentions as those of a good man. She never anticipated that the Star of Eden would become so powerful, but such power could not be overlooked. However, she could not dismiss what had just occurred. The Star of Eden was a formidable and potentially dangerous creation. Juniper spoke with a serious tone, aware of the risks associated with a black hole. She was determined not to let it roam freely. Although she understood that Issei was someone who did not wish to harm any innocent beings, she felt a deep concern for him. Issei swallowed hard, anxiety and fear gripping him. He realized that his chances of remaining in Arcadia might be dwindling. Even Jade, Aqua, and An shared a hint of worry, with An particularly concerned for her student. Juniper continued, her voice solemn yet firm, urging Issei to promise that he would not use the Star of Eden's power until it was absolutely necessary. The power contained within the staff was dangerous, and if it fell into the wrong hands, it could lead to widespread destruction in Arcadia. Another voice chimed in, emphasizing the gravity of the situation. The ability to generate black holes posed a significant risk, especially if Issei failed to control it. They all awaited his response, and Issei understood the weight of their expectations. He looked at them and nodded, acknowledging the immense power of the Star of Eden more than he had ever anticipated. Kinui had to be cautious with its capabilities. He assured them that he would not reveal its power unless it was absolutely necessary. He promised to adhere to the judgment of Shamash. Juniper and An smiled at his commitment. Juniper expressed her gratitude, though she hinted at a feeling that he might need the staff's power in the future, advising him to keep it close. Issei nodded, aware that he might require it for military missions, having heard about several from John. The Hyoudou clan had a rich history, established a few centuries ago. It was known for its wealth and influence, with connections that spanned far and wide. Those familiar with the Hyoudou family recognized their significant standing in both the human and supernatural realms. The current leader was Goro Hyoudou, Issei's father, who had married Miki Hyoudou, a woman unaware of the supernatural world. The clan operated under a strict motto: there is no good or evil, only power and those too weak to seek it. This motto reflected the clan's pedigree nature, prioritizing those deemed worthy while disowning those who did not meet their standards. However, they were not cruel enough to abandon them entirely. Members of the Hyoudou family were expected to possess immense magical prowess, physical strength, or at least a sacred gear. Those who did not meet these criteria were disowned but still retained a place in the family, albeit as outcasts. Another rule dictated that clan members were forbidden from attacking one another, including those who had been disowned. Such actions would lead to immediate expulsion without exception. The Hyoudou clan maintained good relationships with various supernatural factions, although they were not universally liked. Some families, particularly the 5 principal families of Japan, harbored animosity toward them. This stemmed from an incident years ago when Juzo Hyoudou, Issei's grandfather, had easily defeated their clan leaders, causing lasting resentment. Despite this, the clan's connections with the supernatural had positive effects, as many supernatural families sought to maintain ties with the Hyoudou clan. An example of this was Rias Gremry's engagement to Riser Phoenix, which was called off after Rias attempted to give her virginity to Dai Hyoudou, highlighting the clan's influence. Juzo Hyoudou was a kind-hearted man who prioritized family above all else. He possessed high magical abilities, rivaling those of a low Satan-class devil. However, as time passed, his strength waned, and he grew increasingly concerned about his family's growing greed and ambition, which overshadowed their values of love and unity. The realization that his own son was among the greedy troubled him deeply. The only family member Juzo felt was different was Issei, whom he loved despite his disowned status. Unfortunately, Juzo passed away, leaving Issei to navigate a world that seemed hostile toward him. Goro Hyoudou, on the other hand, was a strict man who upheld the clan's motto without exception. As Juzo aged, Goro's influence over the clan grew stronger, and he became increasingly demanding of his children, pushing them to become powerful. Issei, unable to meet his father's expectations, was disowned and treated as a disgrace, often ignored by his family. Even his mother, Miki, gave him the silent treatment, especially after the events involving Dai. Issei's life took a dark turn after his grandfather's death. The only person who had shown him love was gone, and he found himself in a nightmare. The life he had envisioned crumbled as Dai took everything from him, leaving Issei feeling depressed and hopeless as time went on. He despised how the factions treated him and wished for his demise, along with his family, who seemed indifferent to his suffering. Despite his efforts to gain their approval, Dai consistently overshadowed him, taking credit for achievements while Issei remained in his shadow. No one would believe him, no matter what he said, leading him to eventually stop viewing the Hyoudou family as his own. Instead, he found a sense of belonging with Hades and his family. Dai further isolated Issei by spreading rumors and charming those he cared for, deepening Issei's loneliness and despair. Though he could have succumbed to hatred, he chose to distance himself from the family, deciding it was best to leave them behind. Over time in Arcadia, he resolved to establish his own Hyoudou clan, determined to demonstrate his strength and capabilities. Current members: Jizohide, Gorhide, Ngehide, Dihide, Kahide. Several relatives. Former members: Seihide. In the underworld at 9:30 a.m., the faction leaders convened to discuss the recent troubling events. Attacks had become increasingly frequent, and their true purpose remained a mystery. The factions were attempting to free their imprisoned allies, a task that required immense effort and determination. Zeus expressed his frustration, lamenting the disappearance of Hades and Nyx, which was compounded by the fact that his entire domain had severed ties with them and refused to support the alliance. Azazel commented on the situation, sharing his own frustration over the vanishing of Great Red and Ophis, who had left without a trace. Shemhazai noted that the last sighting of any of them was near the dimensional gap, prompting an investigation in that area. Shiva expressed concern about the wisdom of such a move, suggesting that the disappearance of Great Red and Ophis was not without reason. Zeus added that traveling through the dimensional gap was perilous, and caution was necessary during their investigation. The god of destruction reflected on the increasing problems that had arisen since Issei and his family departed. They acknowledged the urgency of locating the two dragon gods, as their absence posed a significant issue. The disappearance of Hades, Nyx, and their families, along with Issei, left a troubling void. As Azazel mentioned Issei's name, frowns appeared on the faces of many present. Shiva pondered the source of the animosity directed toward the boy, deciding he would reserve judgment until he witnessed Issei's character firsthand. Although he had heard stories about Issei, he remained uncertain about their validity and felt a sense of unease regarding the potential consequences of believing them. Zeus, irritated, questioned Azazel's reasoning for bringing Issei into the conversation. Azazel clarified that even Issei's absence, alongside Great Red and others, was significant. Zeus began to understand that if Issei had allied with them, it could create complications, though none present viewed him as a real threat due to his perceived weakness. Azazel, feeling the tension surrounding Issei's name, expressed his reluctance to discuss him further. Shiva suggested that instead of focusing on locating the missing individuals, it would be wiser to address the revival of the Cows Brigade. Yasaka added that Dai had been managing the situation, noting a reduction in attacks. Surzex voiced his concerns about Rizavim's intentions, pointing out that while Kokabeel had been released, Rizavim had remained unusually quiet, which was unsettling. Elmenhild mentioned that she had implemented defenses for Valerie Teeps, ensuring her power did not fall into Rizavim's hands. The meeting concluded with Zeus instructing the leaders to teleport back to their factions, while Surzex stayed behind to relay the information to the other Satans and the Devil Council. A loading screen appears, progressing from 0% to 100%. Issei gazes at the Arcadian capital in awe, witnessing the academies engage in battle. The Arc siblings display their impressive fighting skills. Issei, along with Nyx and Invictus, showcases his abilities while assisting the original 15 in their mission. Scenes from Issei's past flash before him, where he recalls the mockery he faced from others. He contemplates whether it is worth saving these people anymore. As he walks through Kuo, Issei feels a deep sadness over how his past was marred, taken from him by his brother. Anger wells up inside him, and he clenches his fists at the thought of his family. In a training session, Issei finds himself alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana. For the first time, he experiences a genuine bond with someone, as silhouettes of the big three appear, with Invictus, Nyx, and Ophis by his side. Memories of his requests for training from Azazel flash by, only to be met with indifference. He recalls his persistence in asking Graphia for training, which was met with rejection and threats. Determined, Issei pushes aside the painful memories as he races toward Arcadia with his new family. The diverse settlements of Arcadia unfold before him, and he walks alongside Nyx, both filled with wonder. The scene shifts to Persephone and Hades, who are diligently studying in their respective academies, eager to learn more. Issei builds friendships with the members of the original 15, alongside Nyx and Invictus, while a shadowy silhouette looms in the background. As Issei clashes with John, both wear smirks, while a blonde-haired woman and Nyx cheer for them. Invictus and the others from the original 15 watch with keen interest. Issei reflects on Arcadia, where he is cherished and valued, in stark contrast to his old world, where he felt despised. He understands that a world that does not appreciate him does not deserve him. He attempts to recall his past feelings for the girls, but those memories begin to fade. Soon, he encounters a version of Ingvild, one that is different from the Ingvild he once knew. Issei was pushed forward by the big three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and her family watched in happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he eyed the Arc family, his targets. His desire to rule was evident, and Juniper's expression reflected horror and despair. Issei stepped up to help Juniper, encouraging her during this tough time. He also offered hope to the Arc family, understanding their sadness and despair. Together with his family, Issei prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as memories of Dai flooded back. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, he fought fiercely, while Great Red and Ophis took down many of their foes. Invictus, Nyx, Hades, and their families joined the fray. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, further enraging the man as he battled against two members of the Arc family. He was horrified to see Juniper share a similar expression upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings fought valiantly against the traitors of the Arc clan, while a red-haired woman watched with a sinister look. The big three, along with Issei, fought off the last of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper and Nicholas clashed, Issei assisted her, both smiling as they neared the end of the fight. Issei shook his head, shocking the Arc Council, who had hoped he would become the Emperor. Even Juniper was stunned by his response. Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, now that things were improving, smiles on their faces. As Issei and Juniper exchanged loving smiles, a wedding hall appeared in the scene. The image shifted to show Issei with a different appearance, standing confidently with the Arc family behind him. Several months later, in the Kingdom of Arcadia, at the Magic Academy, Issei was watching the final list, knowing it would reveal those ready for the final examination. Beside him, Nyx looked at the screen, searching for their names. Soon enough, their names appeared at the top of the panel, indicating they had been selected for the final exam and would be graduating soon. Nyx expressed her surprise and excitement, reflecting on their progress over the past 2 years. Issei suggested they ask about the examination schedule, but before they could move, Aqua approached them with a smile. She congratulated them on their selection, and Issei thanked her in return. Aqua informed them that the examinations would take place a day after the announcement, and it wouldn't be a typical exam. Instead, they would face an opponent chosen by the Academy, with a time limit. They had 2 choices: survive the battle or defeat their opponent. Issei inquired about who they would be battling, but Aqua playfully kept that a secret. After Aqua left to handle paperwork, Issei and Nyx decided to head outside the Academy to meet Invictus. In the cafeteria of the Academy of Technology, Invictus expressed his surprise upon hearing the news of their selection. He congratulated them, and Nyx smiled back, excited about their upcoming graduation and the prospect of joining the army together. Nyx contemplated her next steps, mentioning her desire to train further in magic. She recalled John's stories about a war on a bug planet, where even the strongest artillery struggled against the creatures. Invictus acknowledged the toll that military service could take on individuals, recognizing the challenges that lay ahead for them all. Arcadia was compulsory for citizens to have some level of military experience, a reality that shaped their lives. Invictus suggested changing the topic and inquired about Issei's plans for the semester-end examinations. Issei shared that he intended to design a small robotic device with 360-degree vision capable of scouting any location. Invictus listened intently, then asked Issei if he had completed his end-of-semester examination. Issei confirmed that he had finished his 5th god key of Project Honkai and summoned 2 gloves from his magic inventory, presenting them as the grips of Tai Xian. These gloves granted Issei absolute control over any attack directed at him. He explained that he could deflect an opponent's attack back at them and manipulate the mana within it to enhance his own vitality. This revelation surprised Invictus, who realized that if Issei could master such abilities, he would become a formidable ally. Juniper had been right about Issei's massive potential. Curious about the limitations of this power, Invictus listened as Issei explained that if his opponent was significantly stronger, the gloves would be ineffective. Additionally, he needed to maintain a reactive body to avoid vulnerability. Invictus nodded in understanding, recognizing Issei's potential to become one of Arcadia's most formidable allies, especially after effortlessly learning gravity magic and creating the Star of Eden. Only a select few, including John, Rosemary, Juniper, Invictus, and Issei's family, were aware of the Star of Eden's existence. They understood the dangers of black holes, knowledge that even Invictus possessed, as many would not survive an encounter with one. Drake, the voice of Issei's boosted gear, commented on Issei's achievement, noting the aspect of domination integrated into the new god key. The boosted gear manifested as a gem on the grips of Tai Xian, showcasing a fiery orange color scheme, a departure from its usual red. Invictus greeted Drake, who expressed his preference for staying with Issei and Nyx rather than roaming the skies like Great Red or Ophis. Invictus then asked Issei about his origin, curious about which Earth he came from among the many in Arcadian space. Issei explained that his Earth was considered unidentified and was light years away from Arcadia. Nyx added that their journey to Arcadia was purely by chance, as their Earth lacked advanced space travel. When Invictus expressed surprise that their meeting was coincidental, Issei reflected on his home, describing it as having its ups and downs and a rough past he preferred not to discuss. Invictus respected Issei's boundaries, knowing that delving into his past could evoke negative emotions. Shifting the conversation, Invictus suggested that Nyx head to the kingdom of Deathless for work. Nyx was familiar with the Deathless, a biologically engineered immortal species inhabiting Arcadia. She explained that deathless individuals could transfer their souls into new bodies upon death, and some maintained rebirth chambers for their resurrection. Invictus elaborated on Galeth Arc, the father of the Deathless, who possessed the power to destroy them using QIP's destabilization. He also mentioned the Infinity Blade, a weapon capable of killing the Deathless and preventing their return to life. This reminded Issei of a previous encounter with Galeth Arc. 2 months earlier, while walking back to his dorm from the academy, Issei had sensed a harrowing presence that initially made him shiver. However, as he grew accustomed to it, fear dissipated. Turning around, he encountered a man with an intimidating presence, characterized by black hair, bright gold eyes, and black robes adorned with gold ornaments, particularly around his chest, resembling a necklace. He walked towards Issei, who appeared confused about his identity. Galeth Arc introduced himself as the father of Deathless, expressing his pleasure in meeting the wielder of the flames capable of destroying souls. His serious and deep tone made Issei feel a bit nervous, yet he stood fearless in front of Galeth, which amused the older man. Issei and Nyx were resting in their rooms, watching the screen that depicted their recent fight. They had managed to push him back, despite her being one of the big three. They understood that their actions would attract attention, with some wanting to exploit Issei's powers for malicious purposes. Nyx turned to Issei with a smile and asked if he ever regretted coming there. Issei replied that he did not regret it at all. His life had improved since arriving. He had almost forgotten what was happening back home and wondered if Dai had been exposed, considering nearly 2 years had passed. Nyx shook her head, expressing her doubts. She believed Issei had cleared most threats for them, and they were likely enjoying themselves without concern for what was happening. Issei suggested they forget about the past, emphasizing that they had come to start a new life. Nyx agreed, and as they waited for their names to be called, Persephone, Hades, and their 2 daughters entered the room. Persephone rushed to Issei and hugged him, congratulating him on his graduation. Issei happily returned the hug and thanked her. Hades, along with Macaria and Melano, approached to offer their congratulations as well. Hades expressed his admiration, noting that Issei had impressed everyone by graduating in just 2 years, a feat not accomplished by any Arcadian in that time frame. Persephone added that Issei was capable of great achievements, and Nyx had also excelled. Both Issei and Nyx blushed at the compliments, and Issei thanked them with a smile. Melano suggested they celebrate their success, and Macaria proposed going out for dinner. Issei agreed, mentioning it had been a while since he had eaten out. Persephone nodded in agreement and suggested a celebratory party at a nearby 7-star restaurant. The others concurred, and just then, an announcement was made, calling for Issei and Nyx to head to the graduation hall to collect their certificates. Persephone reminded them that they needed to look presentable, and Issei and Nyx exchanged curious glances, wondering how they would prepare for their graduation. Issei was pushed forward by the big 3, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and his family watched with happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he observed several armed men, his target being the Arc family. His desire to rule was evident, and Juniper's expression shifted to one of horror and despair. Issei stepped in to help Juniper, encouraging her during this tough time. He also offered hope to the Arc family, understanding their sadness and despair. Together with his family, Issei prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as memories of Dai flooded back. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, he fought with determination, while Great Red and Ophis unleashed their power, taking down many of the Black Arms. Invictus, Nyx, Hades, and their families joined the fray. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, which only fueled Nicholas's anger as he battled 2 members of the Arc family. Issei watched in horror as Juniper reflected the same expression upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings fought valiantly against the traitors of the Arc clan, while a red-haired woman observed with a sinister smile. The big 3, along with Issei, pushed against the last of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper clashed with Nicholas, Issei assisted her, both of them smiling as they neared the end of the fight. Issei shook his head, surprising the Arc Council, who had hoped for him to become emperor. Even Juniper was taken aback by his response. Together, Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, now filled with hope and smiles. As they stood together, Issei and Juniper shared a loving smile, envisioning a wedding hall. The scene shifted to Issei, now with a different appearance, standing proudly with the Arc family behind him. The graduation ceremony had just begun, with many guests in attendance, including those Issei had bonded with, like Jade, Aqua, Olivia, Rosemary from the Arc sisters, and John, who was present alongside Shio. Olivia was a beautiful woman with light blonde hair adorned with a tiara. She had blue eyes and wore a white sleeveless dress that reached her upper thighs, complemented by a flowing navy blue cape and knee-high white boots. Her dress featured a significant pattern resembling dragon scales, with a small oval design near the hem. Alongside her were Empress Juniper, Galith, Liam, Julius, and Issei's mentors, Willow Schnee and Enren. Hades and Persephone, along with Melano and Macaria, were also present, as were Ophis and Great Red in miniature form. Invictus joined the celebration for their graduation. Willow asked Persephone where Issei and Nyx were, to which Persephone replied with a smile that she had given them a slight makeover. Soon, Issei and Nyx entered, both looking sharp. Issei sported well-trimmed hair, a white shirt, jeans, and a cape, topped off with a black hat. Nyx wore a stunning red sleeveless dress and heels, her hair flowing freely, also adorned with a cape and black hat. John commented with a sly grin that the stars of the evening had finally arrived, prompting Issei to chuckle. He acknowledged that Persephone had gone all out for their outfits. Nyx added her agreement, and Persephone chimed in, emphasizing the importance of looking their best for such a significant event. Hades remarked on their impressive appearance, while Melano noted that their little brother was graduating. Macaria expressed her excitement for her own graduation, wondering when it would happen. Juniper encouraged the younger girls to be patient, reminding them that their term was nearing its end and they needed to perform well in their examinations. The daughters of Hades nodded in agreement, knowing that Hades and Persephone would also be graduating soon, preparing to join the army before pursuing their careers elsewhere. Nyx planned to head to the kingdom of the deathless. Juniper looked at Issei and Nyx, wishing them well as they approached the center stage. Aqua took the microphone and announced that tonight was special, as Issei, Hyoudou, and Nyx would share a few words. They had graduated ahead of the usual 3-year timeline, and the audience erupted in applause. As Issei took the stage, he reflected on his time at the Magic Academy, describing it as the best experience he had ever had. He expressed gratitude for being in a place free from anger and hatred, a sentiment that resonated deeply with those from his past. While some in the audience were puzzled by his words, those close to him understood the weight of his experiences. He continued, emphasizing how the Academy had significantly aided his learning of magic, making it a truly enlightening and amazing journey for him and many others. Issei reflected on how far he had come, expressing gratitude for the guidance he received from Professor Aqua Arc, his mentors and Ren and Willow Schnee, Empress Juniper Arc for her support, and John and Olivia Arc for helping him settle in. He also acknowledged his family for their unwavering support throughout his journey. He felt that without their encouragement he would not have reached this point. The individuals he mentioned smiled at his words, with Nyx and Persephone beaming the brightest. Issei considered them family, and they were touched by his reverence for them. Just as he cherished them, they cherished him in return. He concluded his speech, thanking everyone for the experience, and turned to the audience, who applauded and cheered for him. This moment was new for Issei, as he had faced much hatred in his previous life. He smiled and walked down the stairs, followed by Nyx, who received a warm welcome from the crowd as she took the stage. Nyx acknowledged the audience, stating she would keep her remarks brief since Issei had covered much of what she wanted to say. She expressed her gratitude for the support of her family and loved ones, noting that without them, she wouldn't be where she was today. She had learned a great deal from Issei, and without him, she felt she wouldn't have made it this far. She also thanked Professor Aqua Arc for her guidance, along with John and Olivia Arc for their support, and Empress Juniper Arc for assisting her with her challenges. Nyx spoke with a cheerful smile, and her family, along with those she mentioned, felt joy at her words. With a final expression of gratitude, Nyx stepped away from the microphone. Professor Aqua then approached to present their graduation certificates. As they received the certificates, they felt a sense of accomplishment, marking their official graduation as magicians. Overjoyed, Issei and Nyx tossed their caps into the air, and the crowd erupted in cheers and applause, celebrating their achievements at the Academy. Meanwhile, Hades looked at Persephone, who asked if Issei was truly happier. Hades admitted he had never seen Issei this joyful, suggesting that his old life was becoming a distant memory. Persephone hoped this would indeed be the case, seeing how happy Issei was alongside his family. The group decided to celebrate their graduation with enthusiasm and joy. A few weeks later, Issei sat in his dorm after completing his training at the Magic Academy, with 1.5 years left in his Academy of Technology Studies. He had just awakened from a troubling nightmare, which he realized was a premonition of events to come in Arcadia. He was unsettled by the vision of a man with white hair and the Emperor of Arcadia, Nicholas Arc, and felt compelled to contact Great Red for guidance. Great Red informed him that what he experienced was a form of future sight, a specialized magic spell that worked passively. While there was a possibility that the vision could come true, Great Red cautioned him that the future was not predetermined and could change over time. Issei pondered this when Nyx entered the room. Although the dorm was shared, Nyx might not be able to stay much longer due to her impending graduation. While there was no immediate threat of eviction, it loomed in the future with new candidates entering the academy. Issei greeted Nyx with a smile, but her expression shifted as she sensed something was off. She asked if he was all right. Issei replied that he was fine but wondered about their next steps. Nyx shared that Juniper had spoken to Galith, who accepted her into the kingdom of Deathless, where she would work until Issei completed his studies. Issei expressed his happiness for her opportunity, embracing her and making her blush. However, he felt a pang of sadness at the thought of her being away for a while. Nyx acknowledged the significance of the opportunity, understanding that such chances were rare. She hesitated, admitting her uncertainty about being apart from him for an extended period. Issei reassured her that she could reach out to him anytime, promising he would always keep his word. Nyx felt grateful for his support but remembered his earlier concern and asked what had troubled him. What was that about? Issei sighed, mentioning he had a premonition. Nyx, curious, asked about it. He hesitated, explaining that he had a troubling dream of the Emperor betraying the Empress. In his vision, she was heartbroken, weeping as he watched her devastation, feeling utterly helpless. The scene shifted to a full-scale war in Arcadia, where chaos reigned and many lives were lost. He described soldiers in uniform attacking civilians, creating a scene of utter destruction. Nyx's eyes widened in shock and horror. She found it hard to believe that the Emperor could betray his wife, especially after witnessing their deep love for one another. Although they had their disagreements, their bond was genuine. Issei sensed her disbelief and agreed, acknowledging that he too found it hard to accept. He had reached out to Great Red, who warned him that this future might be possible. Issei expressed his uncertainty about what actions to take next. Great Red had advised him to be cautious, as the vision could become reality. Nyx nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation, and they both hoped that the Emperor would not turn traitor. Both had experienced betrayal in their lives. Issei had faced traitors in both his school life and the supernatural world, even from his own family. Nyx had suffered the loss of her brother Erebus, and she wished for the vision not to come true. Nyx suggested that Issei should speak to the Empress about his troubling visions, as keeping it hidden would only lead to more problems. Issei hesitated, worried about hurting the Empress's feelings and unsure of how she would react. Nyx, with an assuring smile, encouraged him to share his concerns. She reminded him that the Empress trusted him completely and would be willing to help. Issei reflected on how the Empress and her children had supported him, guiding him to heights he never thought possible. He realized that in his old world he would have been lost. Arcadia was different from the factions he had known. After some thought, he agreed that he would eventually tell her but decided to lay low for now, as his research was nearing completion. He revealed a small magic circle to Nyx, explaining that it was analysis magic. He had dedicated months, if not years, to mastering this spell. It functions similarly to the Kankara formula, allowing him not only to absorb attacks but also to control and replicate them, returning them to the attacker. He elaborated that if he had a memory of how a magic circle looked, he could replicate the magic and use it against his foes. Nyx was awed by his progress, and Issei acknowledged that while it needed work, he was making strides. Just then, Nyx received a call on her scroll. She informed Issei that she was heading to the kingdom, with Galith taking her there. They shared a brief farewell, with Nyx giving Issei a gentle kiss on the cheek and assuring him they would meet again. They embraced, knowing they would be apart for a while, and as she left, Issei returned to his dorm, feeling the weight of solitude. He lay on his bed, contemplating his upcoming technological courses at the academy and his year in the military. Summoning his boosted gear, he spoke to Drake, who expressed excitement about the military, though he warned that it would change Issei permanently. Issei acknowledged this, wondering what lay ahead as he prepared to contact Juniper about his visions, seeking assistance from Great Red to explain properly. Later, in Issei's dorm at 3:30 p.m., he gathered with the Empress, Willow, and Great Red. He felt the urgency to share his troubling visions. With a heavy heart, he revealed that he had seen the emperor betraying the empress, expressing his apprehension about the potential future he had witnessed. Juniper fell silent, absorbing the information as Great Red explained that while visions could sometimes be avoided, there was still a possibility of them coming true. Juniper listened, her disbelief mingling with sadness. She trusted Issei, but the thought of Nicholas betraying her was unfathomable. She had loved him for years, and despite their disagreements, he had always been a loving husband, even if he had been distant lately. With fear in her voice, she insisted that she did not believe Nicholas would turn against her. Willow and, however, took Issei's vision seriously, recalling how Nicholas had recently been distant from Juniper, leaving them all uncertain about what the future might hold. He always had an excuse for going somewhere, but they did not take that into consideration. However, with Issei's vision, they felt a sense of foreboding about what was to come next. Willow spoke with a sad tone, expressing her concern for Juniper. She pointed out that Nicholas had been distant, and Juniper dismissed it, insisting that Nicholas would not betray her. Her voice wavered as she added that she did not want to believe such a thing. And, sharing in Juniper's sadness, reminded her that there was a chance Issei's vision might be misleading. Issei nodded in understanding, and Juniper encouraged him to focus on his studies and not let the visions hold him back. She believed in his potential and wanted him to strive for greatness. Issei agreed, acknowledging that he had a bright future ahead of him. Curious about Issei's plans after completing his studies, Juniper asked what he intended to do. He mentioned joining the military to fulfill his service, but Juniper pressed him about his future beyond that. Issei admitted he had not thought much about it, considering the possibility of remaining in the military as a high mage or joining Great Red and Office in the Dragon Kingdom. Juniper smiled, believing he would be welcomed wherever he chose to go, but urged him to concentrate on his studies for now. Willow, excited, inquired if Issei had created any new spells or god keys. Issei explained that he was still working on them and needed more time to perfect his creations. Willow encouraged him to take his time and let the adults handle the situation. Juniper suggested they keep Issei's visions to themselves to avoid causing unnecessary panic. Great Red agreed, assuring them that no one would learn about the visions. Juniper thanked him and reiterated her concern for Issei's well-being. As they prepared to leave, Juniper placed a reassuring hand on Issei's shoulder, reminding him not to let the visions affect him. With that, Juniper, Willow, and teleported away, leaving Issei and Great Red behind. Issei decided it was time to return as well, knowing the dragons would be wondering where he was. Great Red took flight from Issei's dorm, leaving him alone with his thoughts about the future. In Vlad's fortress, located in the Outlands, Vlad and Nicholas watched Issei's fight against An. They were impressed by his ability to hold his ground against a member of the Big Three, showcasing his remarkable skills. Vlad expressed his excitement about Issei's potential, while Nicholas confirmed his earlier assessment of the boy's power. Vlad paused the viewing to discuss their new ARC recruits, revealing that he had identified several weaknesses in Arcadia. With Nicholas's help, they could plan an attack in a few months. Nicholas smiled, but Vlad had another request. He wanted to learn more about Issei's background, including details about his family and friends from his old world. Nicholas considered this and suggested that there was someone who could assist them. He pointed to a tall, beautiful woman with curly orange hair and blue eyes, dressed elegantly. She had an emotionless expression, reminiscent of Office. Nicholas introduced her as Carmilla Leichenberg, the new head scientist of the Black Arms. Carmilla greeted Vlad and expressed her interest in Issei, noting that he was being trained by her project, Sephiroth. She wondered if she could persuade him to join her. Nicholas, however, wanted to handle that aspect himself and tasked Carmilla with gathering information about Issei's past. Carmilla agreed but warned that it would take time due to the unidentified nature of Issei's Earth. Nicholas assured her that there was no rush, emphasizing the need to prepare their armies for the impending invasion of Arcadia. Carmilla smiled, confident that they would soon have control over Arcadia, her expression hinting at their ambitious plans. Issei stood at the edge of the training grounds, the sun setting behind him, casting long shadows across the field. He felt a surge of energy coursing through him, a sign of the power he had been honing for years. His recent visions had been troubling, hinting at challenges that lay ahead. He could sense that something significant was approaching, something that would test not only his abilities but also his resolve. Nyx, his steadfast companion, stood beside him, her expression serious. They had both graduated as mages, a milestone that filled them with pride. However, Issei still had one final technology course to complete, and he was determined to excel in it. Together, they had faced numerous trials, and this next phase of their journey promised to be no different. As they prepared for what was to come, Issei reflected on the Black Arm's army, a formidable force that loomed in the distance. He had heard whispers of their strength and the chaos they could unleash. The thought sent a chill down his spine, but he knew he could not let fear dictate his actions. With a deep breath, Issei steeled himself for the challenges ahead. He and Nyx would confront whatever awaited them, ready to defend their world and protect those they cared about. The future was uncertain, but together, they would face it head-on, united in their purpose and determination. A loading screen is displayed, progressing from 0% to 100%. Issei gazes in awe at the Arcadian capital, witnessing the academies engaged in combat. The Arc siblings demonstrate their impressive fighting skills, while Issei, alongside Nyx and Invictus, showcases his abilities in support of the original 15 during their mission. A scene from Issei's past unfolds, revealing moments of mockery from those around him. He contemplates whether it is worth saving these people anymore. As Issei walks through Kuo, a sense of sadness envelopes him, haunted by memories of his past, which were taken from him by his brother. Anger wells up inside him, and he strikes an image of his family, feeling the weight of his emotions. Issei trains alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana, forming a bond with her for the first time. Silhouettes of the Big Three appear, with Invictus, Nyx, and Ophis by his side. A memory surfaces of Issei requesting training from Azazel, only to be ignored. He approaches Graphia for guidance, but she turns him away. Despite his persistence, a threat of danger looms over him. Determined, Issei shatters the chains of his memories and races toward Arcadia with his newfound family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia come into view, and Issei and Nyx walk. Through them, their eyes filled with wonder. The scene shifts to Persephone and Hades, diligently studying in their respective academies, eager to learn more. Issei enjoys camaraderie with the original 15, alongside Nyx and Invictus, while a shadowy figure looms in the background. Issei engages in a friendly clash with John, both sporting confident smirks. A blonde-haired woman and Nyx cheer for the two combatants, while Invictus and the others from the original 15 observe with interest. As Issei reflects on Arcadia, he feels loved and valued, a stark contrast to the disdain he faced in his old world. He realizes that a place that did not appreciate him does not deserve him. He struggles to recall his past feelings for the girls, but those memories begin to fade. Soon, he encounters a version of Ingvild that is different from the one he once knew. Days pass since Nyx's departure, and Issei finds himself tidying his room, searching for anything that needs to be discarded, including hidden Diet Coke bottles that he often stashed away from Nyx, Persephone, Melano, and Macaria. They were aware of his habit and often scolded him for it, though they allowed him to indulge occasionally. After placing the bags outside for the morning trash collection, Issei enjoys some time alone, knowing it would only last for a month or two at most. The recent examination break had concluded, and the stress of upcoming finals loomed over them, leading to another graduation where they would need to develop a capstone project with a partner. Invictus was eager to team up with Issei. As Issei sorted through his belongings, he considered what would be useful for Arcadia. He was in the process of creating a new god key, the Key of Sanction, Thundering Sniper, designed to unleash powerful lightning strikes and manipulate the lightning element. While rummaging through his possessions, a picture caught his eye. He turned to examine it closely and recognized a woman from his past. She was tall and beautiful, with a curvy figure, long thick black hair styled in a heimcut, and striking red eyes. Issei picked up the image, frowning as he wondered why he still had it. He shook his head, wishing to rid himself of the reminder of someone he once cared for. It dawned on him that he must have kept it while packing to leave his homeworld for this new one. Issei was pushed forward by the big three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and his family watched in happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he observed several armed men, his target being the Arc family. His desire for power was evident, and Juniper's expression reflected horror and despair. Issei helped Juniper, encouraging her during this difficult time, and offered hope to the Arc family, understanding their sadness. He and his family prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as memories of Dai resurfaced. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, they fell before him, while Great Red and Ophis took down many more. Invictus, Nyx, Hades, and their families joined the fray. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, which only fueled the man's anger as he fought against two members of the Arc family. He watched in shock as Juniper mirrored his horror upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings battled against the traitors of their clan, while a red-haired woman watched with a sinister smile. The big three, alongside Issei, fought against the remnants of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper clashed with Nicholas, Issei assisted her, both wearing smiles as they brought the fight to an end. Issei shook his head, surprising the Arc Council, who had hoped for him to become their emperor. Even Juniper was taken aback by his response. Together, Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, now filled with hope and smiles. The scene shifted to a wedding hall, showcasing Issei and Juniper's loving expressions. In a flashback, Issei remembered his past, reflecting on his difficult life at Kuo Academy, shaped by a few individuals. At 13, Issei was found reading a book in a corner, clearly interested and happy. He had always loved learning, whether it was about science, magic, or the latest trends. However, his moment of joy was interrupted when a beautiful pink-haired girl with green eyes snatched his book away. This girl was Norn Cladalissa Gyral, once a close friend, but she had changed over time. Issei pleaded with her to return the book, but she only laughed, revealing that Dai, his younger brother, had encouraged her actions. Issei felt a deep sense of betrayal as he realized how Dai had influenced Norn, turning her from a kind person into someone who took pleasure in his suffering. Dai approached Norn, praising her for her actions. He then taunted Issei, making cruel remarks about him. Issei felt pain and humiliation as Dai kicked him, leaving him in tears while Norn and Dai reveled in his misery. Issei's life at home was filled with torment, as his parents ignored his struggles and Dai bullied him relentlessly. He often wished for things to improve, but despair clouded his hopes. Dai's cruel words echoed in his mind, leaving Issei feeling worthless and alone. Despite the darkness surrounding him, Issei clung to the hope that one day things would change. But as time passed, the harassment escalated, and he felt increasingly trapped in his circumstances. At 14, Issei walked through Kuo town and spotted a woman with semi-long crimson hair and emerald eyes. This was Maltius, Melromark, who had once been friendly and encouraging. However, Issei instinctively hid, recalling how he had almost been betrayed by her. He had overheard a conversation between her and Dai, which had opened his eyes to the danger she posed. Dai had not changed, he remained the same deceitful person he had always been. It was rumored that he would be framed for a serious crime, and the implications of that weighed heavily on me. Beneath his charming facade, he was a malevolent individual with a multitude of negative traits: narcissistic, self-centered, haughty, dishonest, corrupt, arrogant, amoral, treacherous, sinister, sadistic, violent, abusive, deceitful, prejudiced, selfish, greedy, tyrannical, and a pathological liar. If Norn was bad, then Malti was 100 times worse. I recorded their conversation, a testament to my maturity developed through the hardships I faced due to my dysfunctional family. Their ignorance forced me to grow up quickly, making it easier to navigate the harsh realities of life. I had developed a surprising talent for cooking, having taught myself since my mother was often too busy to care for me. Despite the challenges, I became quite skilled, allowing me to provide for myself. This preparation enabled me to gather evidence to clear my name, but it came at a heavy cost. I managed to convince my parents that I was the villain in this situation. Malti could no longer be with my brother, and Dai's hatred for me only intensified. As a result, my parents scolded me and threatened to kick me out of the house. I was not ready to survive on my own, especially since I was not yet qualified for a job. With a year left until graduation and my tarnished reputation due to Dai's lies, I found myself unable to secure employment in Kuo and was forced to consider moving to another town, which was daunting since I had no idea where to go. I had managed to evade Malti, who had betrayed me, and I felt indifferent to her fate. If she continued her actions, I believed karma would catch up with her. Days later, Issei, a boy of the same age, walked through his home, which felt like a living nightmare. He entered to find his family having dinner without him. This neglect was a daily occurrence, and it was no secret that they resented him for lacking magical abilities. They were unaware that his latent magical prowess would one day make them regret their treatment of him. At that time, he did not possess the level of magic that would earn their respect. As he stepped into the room, he failed to notice Dai at the dining table. The sounds of miming reached his ears, leaving him wide-eyed. That day marked the moment he lost all hope for his brother's improvement and for a good friend. It shattered him. He recognized the voice. It was Yumiko's, a good friend he had planned to confess to the following day. The sight of what was happening inside devastated him, but he knew they had crossed a line. He understood that his parents and relatives would support Dai regardless. As the heir to the family, Dai could do no wrong, boasting the highest magical power and wielding the crescent moon gauntlets, which only inflated his pride further. His arrogance grew exponentially, and he took pleasure in humiliating Issei. The scene shifted to Issei, now 17, resting after practicing magic in secret. He often trained at night when everyone else was asleep. Just as he settled down, he was struck by someone. The Kendo Club, the so-called protectors of Kuo Academy, had become a source of torment for him. He looked up to see Aya Natsum, a beautiful girl with long brown hair and dark auburn eyes. Their relationship had soured since Dai's involvement, turning her into an arrogant bully. She often attacked him under the pretense of disciplining a pervert. Thanks to Dai's false reputation of him, she believed the rumors and harbored a deep-seated hatred for him. Aya raised her sword, ready to strike again, and Issei instinctively dodged, quickly getting to his feet. He knew reasoning with her was futile. This was not their first encounter. Facing the entire Kendo Club alone was not an option without revealing his magical abilities. His only choice was to run. As Aya shouted for her friends to chase him, Issei sprinted away, using his sacred gear to boost his speed, allowing him to escape and hide. This had been a recurring nightmare for a long time. He had always wanted to leave but felt trapped until 2 years ago. However, his miseries did not end there. A few months later, Issei found himself in the student council room, where Sona angrily threw down papers, accusing him of spying on the Kendo Club. No matter how he explained himself, he was always blamed for the misdeeds around him. Over time, he began to lose faith in others. He insisted that he had never done any of those things, but no one seemed willing to listen. Among the audience, he noticed Genshuru Saji, one of Dai's lackeys, smirking at his plight. Issei reflected on the harsh words directed at him, feeling the weight of their disdain. Momo, who had a secret crush on Saji, spoke coldly about his past actions, declaring him a disgrace to the family. Despite the venom in her tone, Issei remained unfazed, accustomed to their cruel treatment. He sensed their desire for him to disappear, but something held them back. He recalled how Dai had charmed Sona, saving face by suggesting not to expel him. Issei suspected that Dai had even taken advantage of her trust, and it troubled him that no one in the factions intervened. As time passed, Issei yearned for a normal life, but that opportunity eluded him. He heard cheerful laughter from a group of women nearby, and he was taken aback to see Tsubaki and Kisha at his place. Their presence surprised him, as he remembered their interests lay elsewhere. He felt indifferent, having resigned himself to the chaos around him, especially since Dai had already crossed lines with Yumiko. The scene shifted to the Kyoto incident, where Issei had forced Cao Cao to retreat. However, when he saved Yasaka, she, like many others, fell for Dai's deception and turned against him. Issei began to question his loyalty to those he had once tried to help, realizing it was too late to change his course. Yasaka warned Issei to stay away from her daughter, and he nodded reluctantly, keeping his distance. His trip to Kyoto had gone from bad to worse, culminating in the raiding game where he was dismayed to see Dai lose to Seorg by sheer luck, not due to a lack of training. Issei's faith in the devils began to wane, and he distanced himself while immersing himself in magic. His memories of the vampire territory were hazy, but he recalled the words of Elmenhild, filled with disdain. Yet, amidst the turmoil, there were those who cared for him, including Great Red, Ophis, Persephone, Hades, and his family. He felt grateful for their kindness, especially Draig, who had been there when he needed support the most. The day of the battle against the Beast of Apocalypse arrived, a daunting challenge that threatened to annihilate everyone. Issei knew he had to act swiftly, but he was not alone. The scene transitioned to him, Hades, and his family working tirelessly on a seal to contain Trihexa. It was a difficult task, but Issei believed they could succeed, just as the biblical god had. He dedicated countless sleepless nights to protecting those who cared for him, determined not to lose them. Persephone suggested a modification to the seal, and Issei felt a surge of anxiety at the thought of revealing his identity. Hades reassured him, expressing his strength and resolve to protect Issei. Issei understood Hades's pain. He had once lost everything and harbored resentment toward Cersex for his past actions. Despite the risks, Issei decided to trust Hades and continue their work on the seal. As he reflected on his treatment by others, he felt like a pawn in Dai's game, witnessing his former friends fall under Dai's influence. Rizavim's words echoed in his mind, calling him a fool for helping those who had betrayed him. The scene shifted again to Issei and Nyx, locked in a stalemate until Nyx collapsed. Exhausted, Issei turned to seeing Wild safe, but soon he too succumbed to fatigue. He had hoped for a glimmer of hope, but that hope was quickly extinguished. Issei watched as Dai embraced Ingvild, realizing she had been manipulated by Rias and Dai's lies. Heartbroken, he grieved the loss of trust and friendship. When Dai confronted him with haunting words, Issei felt a surge of anger but restrained himself, knowing retaliation would only lead to more trouble. That moment became the last straw. Issei felt utterly alone, unloved, and ready to abandon everything. With Nyx, Hades, his family, Great Red, and Ophis, he made the choice to escape, leaving behind a world that had brought him nothing but pain. As he looked at a picture of his former friend, he crushed it in his hand, haunted by memories and the weight of betrayal. He threw the crumpled picture on the ground as Draig asked what he would do next. Issei looked at his boosted gear and declared his intention to destroy the image. Flames engulfed the picture, causing it to melt away, leaving no trace behind. He spoke coldly to his partner, recalling the saying about letting the past die. As the last remnants of the picture disappeared in the fire, he prepared to lie down when the doorbell of his dorm rang. He moved to the door and found John standing there with a smile. John explained that they were celebrating their first victory against the Combine and invited Issei and Nyx to join them. Issei replied that he didn't mind but noted that Nyx had gone to Galatha's kingdom to work. John acknowledged this and said he was fine with it. Issei then asked if John could send him the location of the celebration, to which John agreed cheerfully before saying his goodbyes. Issei went inside to change into something more suitable. In the DXD world, at Crow Court, many women were seen crying. The judge presiding over their case, a stern figure, announced that the men present were awarded full custody of the children and their property. One of the women protested, while her husband coldly thanked the judge. He then turned to her with a harsh expression, stating that she had no right to enter his home after her betrayal. The woman began to weep, and many others joined her. The trial stemmed from the female teachers of Kuo Academy being caught in inappropriate relationships, with only the supernatural beings remaining uninvolved. Amidst the chaos, a beautiful white-haired woman observed. Mocha, a tall girl with knee-length white hair and green eyes, wore a school uniform that accommodated her Rosario. As a vampire, she possessed pronounced fangs, and her expressions softened in this form. Mocha loved Issei deeply but had been forced to erase his memories due to threats from Elmenhild and Rias. It pained her to do so, but she complied with Issei's suggestion, wanting to spare him from sadness. Mocha Akashia remembered Issei fondly and despised Dai for making his life miserable. She vowed to find evidence that would reveal Dai's true nature, determined to make him pay for his actions. Just then, Thanatos appeared behind her, smiling. He was a grim reaper cloaked in black, disguised as a hoodie in the human world. Mocha was surprised to see him, and he quickly urged her to keep quiet, explaining that their presence could cause trouble. Mocha asked if he knew where Issei was, and Thanatos suggested they go to his realm to discuss it. They teleported, arriving to find Sharon, a white-haired man in casual attire, who chastised Thanatos for being there. Thanatos reassured Sharon that Mocha was on their side and asked if he could provide information about Issei. Sharon confirmed that Issei and his true family were in a world called Arcadia. Hades had contacted Sharon recently about integrating their realm into that kingdom. He noted that 2 years had passed in Arcadia, while only 5 months had elapsed in their world. Mocha felt a surge of happiness, knowing Issei was alive and thriving. Thanatos added that Issei was becoming strong, trained by the inhabitants of that world. Mocha nodded, filled with hope, determined to restore Issei's memories and help him recover when they reunited. A loading screen progresses from 0% to 100%. Issei gazes in awe at the Arcadian capital, witnessing the academies in action. The Arc siblings display their impressive fighting skills, while Issei, Nyx, and Invictus assist the original 15 on their mission. Scenes from Issei's past flash before him, where he was often mocked by others. He begins to question whether it is worth saving these people anymore. As Issei walks through Kuo, he feels a deep sadness over how his past was marred by his brother's actions. Anger wells up inside him, leading him to strike an image of his family. In another scene, Issei trains alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana. For the first time, he feels a genuine bond with someone, as silhouettes of the big three appear, with Invictus, Nyx, and Ophis by his side. A memory surfaces of Issei asking Azazel for training, only to be ignored. He recalls his persistent attempts to seek training from Graphia, which were met with rejection, culminating in a threatening encounter that made him reconsider. Determined, Issei shatters the chains of his memories and races toward Arcadia, accompanied by his new family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia unfold before him, showcasing various cities as Issei and Nyx explore with wonder. The scene shifts to Persephone and Hades, who are diligently studying in their respective academies, deepening their knowledge. Issei forms friendships with the members of the original 15, alongside Nyx and Invictus, while a shadowy silhouette looms in the background. Issei prepares for a clash with John, both wearing confident smirks. A blonde-haired woman and Nyx cheer for the two combatants, while Invictus and the other members of the original 15 watch with keen interest. Issei reflects on Arcadia. He feels the warmth of being loved and cared for, contrasting sharply with the disdain he faced in his old world. He realizes that a world that does not appreciate him does not deserve him. Struggling with his past feelings for the girls, Issei attempts to recall them, but they begin to fade. He soon encounters a version of Ingvild that is different from the one he once knew. Vlad's castle, Outlands, 9:30 a.m. Carmilla was overseeing the operation at the Black Arms, preparing for an impending attack in a few months. While Vlad believed they were ready, Nicholas had his doubts. He understood that to defeat the Arcadians, he needed to work harder to recruit more allies for their cause. One of those allies was Frisia von Bismarck, a wolf fauness with short gray hair and silver eyes, who wore glasses. Her attire resembled a more casual version of an officer's uniform, adorned with royal ornaments on her shoulders, and she wore brown gloves, 2 belts across her shoulders, stockings, and black boots. An admiral-style coat served as her jacket or cape. Currently, she was acting as a spy for Nicholas, providing him with valuable information about Arcadian politics and the opportune moment to strike. Nicholas had limited time at the castle, needing to be with his wife, Juniper, to reassure her of his loyalty. His recent absences had raised doubts in her mind, and she longed for a vacation. However, Nicholas was maintaining a facade of affection for her while secretly focusing on his mission. Fortunately for the Black Arms, he was present at the moment. Alongside Carmilla, he reviewed the army logs, a weekly task to ensure they gathered enough strength for their first assault. Log 15 indicated a new batch of Black Arms soldiers was on the way. They had successfully gathered over 250,000 troops, with 1 million more anticipated. This development would expedite their plans to conquer Remnant. Nicholas looked at Carmilla, who spoke with a smile, and he responded in kind. Indeed, that is the best part. I managed to gather every force I could, and as always, Carmilla, you never cease to impress me. Carmilla felt a flush of pride at his words. Of course, it is what I do best. The armor I have gathered is known to be very effective for our upcoming plans. She moved closer to Nicholas, wrapping her arms around him as he continued, and then, we will rule Arcadia side by side, no matter what happens. Carmilla leaned in closer, her intentions clear, but just as they were about to share a moment, Vlad entered the room, visibly uncomfortable. Could you please keep this private and not in front of the soldiers? He remarked, prompting the two to separate. Nicholas greeted Vlad with a smile. Vlad. Sorry you had to see that. I'm glad you could make it here. Vlad sighed in response. Well, I do live here, so what is it you two wanted to discuss? Carmilla straightened herself and spoke. I want to show you the new army gear I developed, as well as more about the army. In that case, show me. I'm eager to know what we have in store against the Arcadians. Carmilla nodded and began explaining the new equipment that would be crucial in their war against the Arcadians. A loading screen appeared, progressing from 0% to 100%. Issei was seen gazing at the Arcadian capital in awe, witnessing the academies in battle. The Arc siblings displayed their fighting skills, while Issei, Nyx, and Invictus showcased their abilities, assisting the original 15 in their mission. A flashback revealed Issei's past, where he faced mockery from others. He pondered whether it was worth saving these people anymore. Issei was pushed forward by the Big Three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and his family watched with happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he observed several armed men, his target being the Arc family. His desire to rule was evident, and Juniper's expression reflected horror and despair. Issei helped Juniper, encouraging her during this tough time. He also offered hope to the Arc family, understanding their sadness and despair. Issei and his family prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting their teeth as memories of Dai surfaced. Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, defeating them with determination, while Great Red and Ophis took down many more of the Black Arms. Invictus, Nyx, Hades, and their families joined the fight. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, which only fueled Nicholas's anger as he battled against two members of the Arc family. He watched in horror as Juniper mirrored his expression upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings fought against the traitors of the Arc clan, while a red-haired woman wore a sinister look. The Big Three, along with Issei, fought against the last of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper clashed with Nicholas, Issei assisted her, both wearing smiles as they aimed to end the fight. Issei shook his head, shocking the Arc Council, who had hoped he would become the emperor. Even Juniper was taken aback by Issei's response. Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, feeling a sense of hope as things began to improve. They smiled, knowing they had overcome much together. Issei and Juniper shared loving smiles as a wedding hall came into view. The scene shifted to Issei, now with a different appearance, standing alongside the Arc family. A few months later, in Arcadia main city at 9:30 a.m., Issei roamed around with Mocha Akashia. He wore a brown jacket over a white shirt and blue jeans, his jacket featuring 2 side pockets and a black belt. His reddish-black Jordans completed the look. Mocha wore a sleeveless silver dress skirt paired with black leggings, her blood-red skirt matching her vampire aesthetic, and she wore heels, her hair flowing freely. Despite being a pure-blooded vampire, she had developed a close bond with Issei. To understand how Mocha ended up here, one must backtrack a few weeks. Hades had been hesitant about allowing someone from the factions to join, but Sharon and Thanatos convinced him that she would not be a problem and revealed everything. Hades and Persephone reluctantly agreed and approached Juniper about this. She welcomed the merging of realms with the kingdom of Hell, leading to the acceptance of Grim Reapers and Mocha Akashia into their world. Although it was initially challenging to convince the leader of the realm, they eventually succeeded, and Hades's domain was accepted. Mocha introduced herself by removing the seal on Issei's memories, making it clear that she was one of the few who meant a lot to him. He was overjoyed to be reunited with her and explained her significance to his friends, including the Empress. Once the Empress accepted Mocha as an Arcadian and bid her farewell, Mocha decided to catch up with Issei, and they had much to discuss. Ophis and Nyx viewed her as a potential rival for Issei's affection, but they recognized that Issei had mostly recovered from his traumatic past and was in a better place. In the aftermath, Mocha joined the Magic Academy to further her studies, having been there for a few months. Aqua was delighted to train her, and with everything progressing positively, they felt hopeful for Issei and his friends and family. Mocha asked Issei for help with her exams, expressing her need to create a spell based on elemental magic. She was eager to learn how he had mastered magic so quickly. Issei nodded in agreement, and Mocha beamed at him. After a moment, she felt it was time to share something important with him about his brother. Issei's smile faded as he sighed, wondering what it could be. Mocha urged him to listen, explaining that his brother had done something troubling. Issei looked at her, preparing for the revelation, already sensing that something significant had occurred since he had not seen or heard from his brother in 2 years. Issei was taken aback by the revelation about his brother's misdeeds, something he had been completely unaware of. Mocha, sensing his surprise, suggested they move to a more private place to discuss it. She proposed they head to his dorm, and Issei nodded in agreement. Mocha had recently started living in Issei's dorm, which had previously belonged to Nyx. However, Nyx had moved on to the kingdom of Deathless. Mocha made it a point to visit Issei weekly, and during these visits, they would gather with their friends for a small get-together. Issei walked through the familiar streets of Kuro, feeling a deep sadness over how his past had been shattered, taken from him by his brother. Anger bubbled within him as he struck a nearby image of his family. He trained alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana, feeling a genuine connection for the first time. The silhouettes of the big three appeared, with Invictus, Nyx, and Ophis by his side. Memories surfaced of his attempts to seek training from Azazel, who had ignored him. He had also approached Graphia, but she had turned him away. Despite his persistence, he faced threats that made him reconsider his approach. Determined to escape his painful memories, Issei ran toward Arcadia, accompanied by his new family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia unfolded before him, filled with awe-inspiring cities. He and Nyx explored these places, their eyes wide with wonder. The scene shifted to Persephone and Hades, who were diligently studying in their respective academies, expanding their knowledge. Issei formed friendships with the members of the original 15, alongside Nyx and Invictus, while a shadowy silhouette lingered in the background. As Issei clashed with John, both wore smirks, their competitive spirits ignited. A blonde-haired woman and Nyx cheered for the two fighters, while Invictus and the others from the original 15 observed with keen interest. Issei gazed at Arcadia, a place where he felt loved and valued, contrasting sharply with the disdain he had faced in his old world. He understood that a world that did not appreciate him did not deserve him. He struggled to recall his past feelings for the girls, but those memories began to fade. Soon, he encountered a version of Ingvild that was different from the one he had known. Issei was propelled forward by the big three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and her family watched in happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he surveyed several armed men, his target being the Arc family. His desire for power was evident, and Juniper's expression shifted to one of horror and despair. Issei stepped up to support Juniper during this difficult time, offering her encouragement and hope, understanding the sadness that weighed on the Arc family. He and his family prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as memories of Dai flooded back. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, they fell before him, while Great Red and Ophis unleashed their power against the remaining foes. Invictus, Nyx, Hades, and their families joined the fray. Issei firmly rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, which only fueled Nicholas's anger as he fought against two members of the Arc family. He watched in horror as Juniper mirrored his shocked expression upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings battled against the traitors of their clan, while a red-haired woman observed with a sinister smile. The Big Three, along with Issei, fought against the last remnants of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper clashed with Nicholas, Issei assisted her, both of them smiling as they approached the end of the battle. Issei shook his head, surprising the Arc Council, who had hoped he would become the Emperor. Even Juniper was taken aback by his response. Together, Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, now filled with hope and smiles. Issei and Juniper exchanged loving smiles as a wedding hall came into view. The scene shifted to Issei, now with a different appearance, standing confidently with the Arc family behind him. Issei was left in shock as Mocha revealed troubling information, displaying images through a magic circle. She explained that Nicholas had been involved with female teachers, manipulating evidence to appear innocent. The realization of his brother's true nature left Issei aghast. Juniper was devastated as Issei turned to her, seeing someone he cared for in such a vulnerable state. She had endured a betrayal far worse than his, having her husband turn against her after over 20 years. Issei felt a strong urge to help her, just as she had helped him in his time of need. The Empress of Arcadia had never been seen in such a broken state, weeping and filled with self-loathing for not recognizing Nicholas's deception sooner. She feared for her children, worried they might follow in their father's treacherous footsteps. John felt helpless witnessing his mother's despair, while Mocha and Violet stood by, unsure of how to help. They needed to act quickly to prevent losing everything. Mocha urged Violet to contact the others while she reached out to her family to check on their safety. Issei's concern grew as he wondered if the attacks had spread to other kingdoms, like the Kingdom of Deathless or the Kingdom of Dragons. John shared his worries about his squad still being out there. Violet quickly called her scroll, hoping to reach the members of the original 15, while Mocha did the same. Juniper's despair deepened as she repeated that it was all her fault, blaming herself for endangering not only her people but also Issei's family. Just then, a booming voice from outside captured their attention. Issei turned to see giant screens displaying the face of the former emperor, which horrified him. Juniper turned pale at the sight, and Mocha and Violet were stunned as they joined John in watching the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Arcadia, esteemed guests, my name is Emperor Nicholas, and I have some news to deliver, he announced with a grin. Issei was pushed forward by the Big Three, allowing him to move on from his past. Juniper and her family watched with happiness, seeing his smile that had been absent for a long time. Nicholas wore a smirk as he observed several armed individuals, targeting the Arc family. His desire for power was evident, causing Juniper to feel horror and despair. Issei supported Juniper during this difficult time, offering hope to the Arc family as they faced their sadness. He and his family prepared to confront Nicholas, gritting his teeth as memories of Die surfaced. As Issei faced off against several members of the Black Arms, he fought fiercely, while Great Red and Ophis took down many of their enemies. Invictus, Nyx, Hades, and their family joined the battle. Issei rejected Nicholas's offer to join him, further enraging the man as he fought against two members of the Arc family. He watched in shock as Juniper displayed the same expression upon hearing Nicholas's intentions. The Arc siblings battled against the traitors within their clan, while a red-haired woman wore a sinister expression. The Big Three, alongside Issei, fought against the remnants of Nicholas's forces. As Juniper and Nicholas clashed, Issei assisted her, both wearing smiles as they approached the end of the fight. Issei shook his head, surprising the Arc Council, who had hoped he would become the Emperor. Even Juniper was taken aback by his response. Issei and Juniper, along with their families, gazed at the horizon of Arcadia, feeling a sense of hope as their smiles returned. The scene shifted to a wedding hall, where Issei appeared with a different look, standing proudly with the Arc family behind him. In another location, Nicholas stood before the people, burdened by the weight of a revelation that would shake the foundations of their land. He disclosed a truth that had been concealed for too long, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Juniper muttered in horror, questioning why this was happening. She looked at Nicholas, realizing he intended to tear her family apart, undoing everything her ancestors had worked for. Nicholas proclaimed that Arcadia, once thriving on unity and trust, had been betrayed from within. He admitted to orchestrating a grand deception that had plunged the land into chaos and despair. The devastation they witnessed, the crumbling cities and shattered lives, was the result of his carefully executed plan to dismantle the essence of Arcadia. In a different location, Nyx watched with worry alongside Galeth, who was horrified and unable to comprehend Nicholas's actions. They had previously thwarted gas attacks from the Black Arms. Similar expressions of concern were present in Hades's family, who had just graduated and were preparing for military service. Hades demanded to know what was happening, while Persephone expressed her worry for Issei and Mocha. Persephone reassured Hades that Mocha had contacted them, stating that she and Issei were safe, but the main kingdom was under attack. Hades agreed to bring Melano and Macaria, instructing them to remain until the attack was over. In the Kingdom of Dragons, Great Red expressed their need to fight for their home, with Ophis agreeing. Unbeknownst to them, someone with short blonde hair and blue eyes was watching, growling as he contemplated meeting either Issei or the Empress. Back in the main kingdom, Nicholas continued his speech, reveling in the despair of the Arcadian citizens. He had infiltrated the heart of the nation, sowing discord and dissent while concealing his true intentions. The once proud Arcadia now stood as a testament to the fragility of trust and the consequences of misplaced faith. As Nicholas spoke, the people began to realize he was the traitor from the very beginning. They glared at him, understanding they had been deceived. However, fear began to spread among some, particularly the dwarves and elves, who started to lose their trust in the Arcadians. Nicholas explained his betrayal, revealing that he craved power he believed rightfully belonged to him. He stood before them not as a friend, but as their conqueror. Nicholas had dismantled the pillars of Arcadia and declared war upon its remnants. The people's anger turned to hatred as their emperor betrayed their trust and faith, leading them to turn against him. They yelled insults at the former emperor. He addressed the citizens of Arcadia, revealing his true intentions. He would not rest until every corner of the land was under his rule. The iron fist he now wielded would bring order to the chaos he had unleashed. Arcadia would be reshaped in his image, a realm where dissent was crushed and obedience was absolute. While they mourned the loss of the Arcadia that once was, he promised them a new era, an era where strength and power would be the guiding forces. He urged them to embrace the change, asserting that resistance was futile. He had deceived them, and now he would rule. With a final grin, he declared that the war had begun, as multiple kingdoms allied with Arcadia were attacked by the Black Arms. He proclaimed that history would remember this day as the dawn of a new era, one of Nicholas Cain and his unyielding rule. The people were horrified by what they witnessed. Issei looked at the broken empress and knew he had to act. He recognized that John was not in a state to respond properly and spoke seriously to him. He instructed John to gather all his sisters and meet at a specific location. John was surprised and asked about their mother. Issei assured him he would handle that but emphasized the need to bring everyone's sisters, the council, everyone. John nodded and rushed outside. Issei then turned to Mocha and Violet, telling Violet to return to the original 15 and their sub-battalions to inform them of the situation and prepare for war. Once she was done, she was to stay with John, who needed her. Violet nodded and headed out, while Issei asked Mocha if their friends were all right. Mocha confirmed that she had received a message from Ophis, Hades, and Nyx, stating they were safe and planned to return once they dealt with the gas and the remnants of the Black Arms, as it was still harmful to them. Issei sighed in relief, grateful they were okay. Mocha decided to see if any soldiers remained. Issei was left alone with the Empress, her devastated state igniting a deep anger within him. He spoke to her gently, encouraging her to take a seat. He helped her up, noticing her tears and broken spirit. He conjured a glass of water for her. He offered her the water, but she declined, insisting she was fine and asking to be left alone. Issei shook his head, reminding her that she had gone through a traumatic experience and needed someone to help her. He assured her she was not alone, even if she felt that way. Juniper looked at him with sadness, questioning why he was helping her when he should focus on his own life. Issei explained that he understood her feelings of betrayal and reminded her that she was not alone in this fight. He would fight for her, just as she had helped him settle into a place he was unfamiliar with. She had supported him in his darkest moments, and now it was his turn to do the same. Tears streamed down Juniper's face as she realized he truly cared for her, despite their brief acquaintance. Issei reassured her that it was all right to show her vulnerable side, encouraging her to let it out. She cried on his shoulder and he comforted her, rubbing her back. He felt sadness at the thought of Nicholas betraying someone as kind as Juniper, who had loved him unconditionally. Issei couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. She had found the love she always wanted while he had not. She had shared stories of her romantic moments with Nicholas, urging him not to fear love. But now, seeing her in such pain made Issei furious. Nicholas's actions had turned everything upside down in just one day. After a few minutes, Juniper calmed down, wiping her face with a handkerchief. She spoke with a sad tone, reflecting on the turmoil that had befallen her. Juniper expressed her concern, apologizing for the side of herself that Issei had witnessed and for the state of her dress. Issei reassured her, stating that it was perfectly fine to show vulnerability and that he would stand by her side in the battle against Nicholas. Juniper felt a small smile form as she acknowledged his support, even though he was not from Arcadia. Issei emphasized that Arcadia was his home too, and he would not allow Nicholas, Vlad, or his black arms to destroy it. He spoke of his family and friends who also considered it their home, vowing to protect it at all costs. He encouraged Juniper, reminding her that Arcadia needed its empress to lead the charge, and together they would fight against their common enemy. Juniper realized the truth in his words. She was an empress, and her people depended on her. She understood that she had to fight for her home, no matter the challenges ahead. With determination, she declared that Nicholas must be stopped, and they would unite to confront him and his forces. Issei responded with enthusiasm, affirming that the Empress of Arcadia was back, and Juniper felt a sense of solidarity. In another scene, John gathered all of his sisters in a room, and Juniper recognized her children, relieved that they had not turned against her. Issei, however, noted the presence of Olivia, Jade, Aqua, Bianca, and two new faces, Saffron and Violet, who were the last of John's sisters. John spoke seriously, introducing the sisters to Issei, who acknowledged them with a hint of regret about the circumstances of their meeting. Saffron, a tall, beautiful woman with long blonde hair tied in a ponytail, expressed sadness about their situation. Violet, with brown hair and green eyes, remarked on the importance of keeping their siblings safe from the Black Arms. Issei listened as they discussed the challenges they faced and the hidden power they possessed. He was confused when he heard the term all out, prompting Juniper to explain about the icons, powerful beings capable of immense destruction. Issei recalled the Longinus, weapons that could potentially annihilate entire continents, including the boosted gear. Saffron inquired about the Longinus, and Juniper explained that they were weapons capable of killing gods, with the boosted gear being one of them. Issei confirmed that Draig resided within the boosted gear, and Draig greeted the sisters, acknowledging their first meeting. Bianca expressed her anger and sadness about their father's betrayal, revealing the pain of being deceived for so long. Juniper felt the weight of their emotions, recognizing her own role in their suffering. Jade echoed Bianca's sentiments, questioning their worth in their father's eyes, while Rosemary wept, struggling to comprehend the betrayal. John comforted Rosemary as the sisters processed their heartbreak. Juniper, with a heavy heart, apologized to her children for trusting the wrong person and for the pain it had caused. She bowed her head, seeking their forgiveness, leaving the Arc children in shock. Issei looked at Juniper with sadness, understanding her burden of guilt for being misled by Nicholas. Draig growled in anger as John addressed his mother. He reassured her that she was not to blame for their current situation. They had all been deceived by the man they had once considered a father, who had manipulated them for 2 decades. It was unfortunate that none of them had recognized the truth sooner. Aqua, wiping her tears, affirmed John's words, emphasizing that they had all been betrayed and needed to fight back. Nicholas had to be held accountable for his actions. Violet echoed this sentiment, expressing their need to protect their home from their father and Vlad. Saffron, filled with anger, insisted that they had people to protect and that their father's betrayal did not mean they should give up. Olivia declared fiercely that they would not lose to him, determined to fight for her siblings and their kingdom. However, Juniper spoke with a shaky and fearful tone, telling them that none of them would fight. The siblings and Issei were taken aback, and Olivia questioned her reasoning. Juniper looked at her children with sorrow as she explained that they would be sent away from Arcadia until the conflict with Nicholas was resolved. She feared for their safety, especially after losing Nicholas to his betrayal. Issei, concerned, asked where she planned to send them. Juniper revealed her intention to send them to the 4 kingdoms for their protection, stating that it was the only option she could think of. The room filled with horror as everyone protested, but Juniper silenced them with a desperate plea. She did not want any harm to come to them and could not bear the thought of losing them as well. John spoke up, his voice trembling, while Issei voiced his strong disapproval of sending them to a place filled with dangers, including the White Fang and arrogant huntsmen and huntresses. Juniper acknowledged his concerns. Saffron agreed, recalling how Aunt Willow had warned them about the arrogance of many from Atlas. Bianca joined in, asserting that they could not simply run away from their homeland. They were determined to stand and fight for Arcadia. Rosemary, still shaken by her father's actions, insisted they had to work together to stop him. Aqua echoed this sentiment, stating that they would not abandon their home, especially not to someone they once considered family. Violet added that they had friends and family who would support them in this fight. Jade declared their commitment to defend their home until their last breath, while Olivia expressed her fear of the potential losses they might face. Seeing her children's resolve, Juniper felt a mix of pride and sorrow. Issei reassured her that they were not alone in this battle. It was a fight they would all share. His words brought a tear to Juniper's eye as she acknowledged the strength and courage of her children. She urged them to gather everyone willing to fight against Nicholas, including family and representatives, and to ask Mocha to do the same. The Arc children nodded in agreement, ready to take action. Bianca spoke for everyone, affirming their commitment to the cause. Bianca and the Arc children set out, leaving Issei alone with the Empress. Juniper turned to Issei, her voice filled with concern as she asked if he wanted to talk about his betrayal. Issei's smile faded as he replied that he wished to forget his past, believing that discussing it would only bring back painful memories. Juniper sighed, having anticipated his response. Whenever anyone from Arcadia inquired about his past, he always dismissed the topic. With a solemn tone, she reminded him that he couldn't keep running from his history. Sooner or later, he would need to confront it. She encouraged him to talk to someone, assuring him that she would always be there for him. Issei looked at her, managing a solemn smile as he expressed his gratitude. Juniper nodded in return, both of them waiting for the Arc sisters and Mocha to join them. They were prepared to fight in the war ahead, determined to stop Nicholas no matter the cost. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as they stood ready for the challenges that lay ahead. A loading screen progresses from 0% to 100%. Issei gazes at the Arcadian capital in awe, witnessing the academies in action. The Arc siblings display their impressive fighting skills, while Issei, Nyx, and Invictus demonstrate their abilities, aiding the original 15 in their mission. Scenes from Issei's past flash before him, where he recalls the mockery he faced. He contemplates whether saving these people is still worth it. As he walks through Kuo, Issei feels a deep sadness over his past, which was taken from him by his brother. Anger wells up inside him as he confronts the memories of his family. Training alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana, Issei forges a bond for the first time. Silhouettes of the Big Three appear, with Invictus, Nyx, and Ophis standing beside him. A memory surfaces of him asking Azazel for training, only to be ignored. He recalls his persistent attempts to seek training from Graphia, which ended with a threat to his life. Determined, Issei shatters the chains of his memories and races toward Arcadia with his newfound family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia come into view, and he and Nyx explore them with wonder. The scene shifts to Persephone and Hades, who are diligently studying in their respective academies. Issei shares a friendship with the members of the original 15, alongside Nyx and Invictus, while a shadowy figure looms in the background. He finds himself clashing with John, both wearing confident smirks as a blonde-haired woman and Nyx cheer them on. The original 15 watch with keen interest. Issei reflects on Arcadia, a place where he is loved and cared for, contrasting sharply with his old world, where he felt despised. He realizes that a world that does not appreciate him does not deserve him. As he tries to recall his past feelings for the girls, those memories begin to fade. He soon encounters a version of Ingvild, different from the one he once knew. Issei and Juniper wait for their allies to arrive. Looking outside, he observes that many of the Black Arms are either defeated or detained. He spots ships approaching the Ark Mansion and shares his excitement with a smile. Juniper stands, her gaze fixed on the incoming vessels, recognizing Great Red and Ophis as representatives of the Dragon Kingdom. Determined, Juniper states that it is time to act. She instructs Issei to head to the main council chambers to discuss the looming threat and emphasizes the need for unity. Issei agrees, and they make their way outside to the council chambers, where he is joyfully reunited with his family. Juniper expresses her regret to his parents for not recognizing Nicholas's true intentions. Hades and Persephone reassure her that they are all safe, bringing her relief. Hades shares that he has made mistakes in his life and has worked hard to amend them, further easing her worries. Even Nyx, Great Red, and Ophis do not hold her accountable for her oversight regarding Nicholas. As the representatives and council members settle in, Juniper adopts a serious tone, embodying her role as Empress. She declares the meeting open, ready to address the challenges ahead. In a world that had never acknowledged his struggles, Issei found himself reflecting on his past, where he had been the target of mockery. He questioned whether it was worth saving those who had once belittled him. As he walked through the familiar streets of Kuo, a sense of sadness washed over him. His past felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the actions of his brother. Anger bubbled within him, and he clenched his fists, feeling the weight of his family's expectations. Training alongside a white-haired woman wielding a katana, Issei experienced a connection he had longed for. In the background, silhouettes of the Big Three loomed, with Invictus, Nyx, and Ophis standing beside him, symbolizing newfound bonds. Memories flooded back of his attempts to seek training from Azazel, who had turned him away, and Graphia, who had also rejected him. His persistence had drawn threats, but he refused to be deterred. Determined to break free from the chains of his past, Issei sprinted towards Arcadia, where he hoped to find solace with his new family. The vibrant settlements of Arcadia unfolded before him, each city filled with promise. He and Nyx explored with wonder in their eyes. Meanwhile, Persephone and Hades dedicated themselves to their studies, eager to learn and grow. Issei formed friendships with the members of the original 15, alongside Nyx and Invictus, while a shadowy figure lingered in the background. In a moment of friendly rivalry, Issei faced off against John, both wearing confident smirks. A blonde-haired woman and Nyx cheered them on, while the original 15 watched with keen interest. As Issei gazed at Arcadia, he felt the warmth of love and acceptance, a stark contrast to the disdain he had faced in his old world. He realized that a place that had never valued him did not deserve his loyalty. Struggling with the remnants of past feelings for the girls he once cared for, Issei found himself confronted by a different version of Ingvild, one that challenged his memories and perceptions.